They managed to put
Right,
our
you
seats.
were right.
They managed to put our seats right in
I know.
the middle of this.
All right, let's see if I can figure this one out this morning.
You're on it. You're a good student.
I know, right? I don't know that that's a good thing.
So intro music.
I know, right? Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call the June 24th, 2025 meeting of the Marine Resources Commission to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Preston, followed by invocation by Commissioner Erskine.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Thank you, Lord, for giving us this day to meet at Virginia Marine Resource Commission to discuss important issues before us. Allow us the knowledge and wisdom to do the best we can. In this we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. I'd like, before we start, Lisa, can you let the record reflect that all is present other than Associate Commissioner Bransom, and we have a quorum? All right. That being said, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. Are there any corrections, deletions, or changes from the commission members or staff to the current agenda? Item number 10, removed from the agenda. Okay, we have a request to, board operates on motions. A motion to approve removing item 10 from the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion to approve staff recommendations to remove item number 10 from the agenda. Do I have a second? Got a motion to approve from Commissioner Headley, a second from Commissioner Erskine. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 10 has been removed. Is there any other corrections or deletions need to be made to the agenda? All right, so now the new agenda with item 10 removed is before the commission for approval.
Motion to approve the agenda as modified.
I got a motion to approve agenda as modified by Commissioner Erskine. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second from Ms. Edwards. Any further discussion? All right, good to go. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion carries. Unanimous. All right, minutes. Are there any corrections, deletions, or changes from the commission members or staff for the May 27th, 2025 commission meeting minutes? Any changes? All right, that being said, matters for...
Approve as submitted.
Got a motion to approve as submitted from the Commissioner Erskine.
Second.
Got a second from Commissioner Headley. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And we have any abstentions? Got one abstention, Commissioner Hand. Motion carries 6-0 to 1. All right, Randy, I think you have, I got to swear in staff, my bad. I'm moving a little fast here. I'm going to swear in VMRC staff and VIM staff at this time. Do you swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. All right, Chief Owen, the floor is yours.
Morning, Commissioner, members of the commission. We have 5 2 items. In all 5 cases, you are the default wetlands board for the localities. They have rescinded their wetlands ordinances. Item 2A, Paynes Island is requesting authorization to remove the existing bridge to construct a 20-foot wide open mile timber replacement bridge across the 76-foot section of Bridge Creek and to install and backfill 80 linear feet of bulkhead immediately channeled at the existing bridge abutment serving for ingress and egress of private and farm vehicles adjacent to Paynes Island Road in Essex County. Staff recommends approval with a royalty of $150 for the 50 square foot of subaqueous fill at $3 a square foot and a time of year restriction from February to June 30th for Nasmus fish. This project requires both a wetlands permit and a subaqueous permit. Item 2B, Todd Thompson is requesting authorization to construct a 50-foot long vinyl bulkhead, 2 10-foot returns along the Rappahannock River shoreline at 153 Greenfield Road in Essex County. The project requires a VMRC wetlands permit. Item 2C, Samuel McGowan is requesting authorization to construct a 79-foot rock sill, including returns with clean sand fill, plantings of native wetlands vegetation along the Mattapony River at 756 Rayfield Road in King and Queen County. You're the default wetlands board. It also requires a sub-acres permit. Item 2D, Ted Swearington is requesting authorization to install and backfill a replacement 178-foot bulkhead, 2-foot channel of the existing structure at 3314 Rokeby Avenue along the eastern branch of Elizabeth River in Chesapeake. Wetland credits will be purchased from an approved title wetlands mitigation bank to compensate for the vegetated wetlands filled. The project requires a VMC wetlands and sub-acres permit. Bryan's Cove Development LLC is requesting authorization to regrade and replant an existing living shoreline to create 7,317 feet of vegetated wetlands, close an existing riprap sill window, and install 2 riprap sill saddles within windows at 1816 Barkadeer Cove along Deep Creek in Chesapeake, and you're acting as the default wetlands board for the city of Chesapeake.
Thank you, Chief Owen. Is there any questions for Chief Owen from the commission? Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on any of these item 2 projects at this time? For or against? Does anyone in the audience wish to speak on these? All right. That being said, item 2 items are before the commission.
Motion to approve page 2 item.
And a motion to approve
Second.
projects from Mr. Commissioner Headley. Got a second from Commissioner Edwards. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0. All right. Move along. There are no consent agenda items today on this agenda, and do we need a closed meeting for consultation with our briefing by council?
No, sir.
All right, we're good. All right, Chief Grist, floor is yours.
Good morning. Get to come before you again with another petition for rulemaking. So today, our petition for rulemaking, let me get this to advance. We have a petition for rulemaking. Let's just go over the guidance for this first. Within 14 days of receiving a petition, we have to send a notice for publication in the Virginia Register of Regulations, and the petition has to be posted on Virginia's Regulatory Town Hall. There is a 21-day public comment period. This is provided after the publication in the Register. During this time, VMRC will conduct an interagency and university request for comments. The agency decision has to come within 90 days after the close of the public comment period. The commission issues a written decision to grant or deny the petitioner's request, including reasons for the decision. And for initiating rulemaking, if the commission agrees to initiate a rule change process, it is placed in town hall and advertised following the normal regulatory procedures of public hearing. Now, the petition we have received was received on February 12th. It was filed with Virginia Town Hall on February 18th of this year. Written public comment period for the petition as presented was from March 10th to March 31st of this year. That was published in the Virginia Register of Regulations, Volume 41, Issue 15. Oral comments may be received today during this public hearing. Rulemaking would include sending staff prepared commission requests to the CRAB Management Advisory Committee for review, the commission for a request for public hearing, and if approved, the Office of Attorney General, the Office of Regulatory Management, and initiating a public comment period later in the year. So the order of the proceedings today will be a staff introduction to the petition, a petitioner presentation of 10 minutes, staff presentation concerning the petition, public comment period with a time limit determined by the chair, response by the petitioner, 5 minutes are allocated, commissioner questions and deliberation, and your decision. At the end of this, the commission issues a written decision to grant or deny the petitioner's submitted request in its entirety as advertised for public comment with reason. Written decision is published in the Virginia Register and a rulemaking is initiated and advertised per 28.2 2R9 of the Code of Virginia and placed in the Virginia Regulatory Town Hall for review by the Office of Regulatory Management. If denied, written decision is published in the Virginia Register. Also, if denied, it does not preclude the commission from then, after final decision rendered with reason, request the staff explore an element presented in the petition or through public comment. Today's petition rulemaking number 427, petition to protect diamondback terrapins from mortality in blue crab pots by requiring bycatch reduction devices in nearshore waters. The petition is to protect diamondback terrapins from mortality. It was submitted by the Center for Biological Diversity, Virginia Herpetological Society, Wild Virginia, and Dr. William M. Rosenberg on February 12th of this year. The petitioners are requesting that VMRC adopt or amend regulations to require bycatch reduction devices, also known as BRDs, on licensed commercial and recreational blue crab pots in waters less than 150 yards from shore at the mean low water mark, including man-made lagoons, creeks, coves, rivers, tributaries, shallow bays, inlets, and nearshore harbors. To include the fishery, to provide the fishery reasonable time to retrofit crab pots, petitioners suggest a 3-year grace period. So it'll allow the use of other gear modifications, also to allow the use of other gear modifications that demonstrate through peer-reviewed study similar to the efficacy of 4.5 centimeters to 12 centimeters, which represents basically 1 3/4 inches by 4 3/4 inches, as set forth in the cited notations, Butler and Henrik, 2007, Rosenberg and Green, 2000. The petition's regulatory language request, specifically for the both recreational and commercial regulations pertaining to definitions, regulation, and prohibition of certain harvesting gear, they cite Virginia Code 28.2-226, Chapter 670, Section 20, Chapter 270, Section 25. The following should be added. Bycatch reduction device, or a BRD, means a rigid rectangular device constructed of wire or plastic that has an opening no larger than 4.5 centimeters by 12 centimeters, which is attached to the end of each entrance funnel of a crab trap to minimize bycatch of diamondback terrapins. This definition also includes any device or gear modification that results in a greater than 70% reduction in terrapin captures compared with unmodified traps, as demonstrated by at least one peer-reviewed study. Also beginning 3 years from the date of the amendment, if adopted, all traps, whether commercial or recreational, in state waters less than 150 yards from shore at the mean low water mark, man-made lagoons, creeks, coves, rivers, tributaries, shallow bays, inlets, and nearshore harbors must have this same BRD, must have a similar BRD of oval design, meeting the specifications defined attached to each entrance or funnel. I do want to note to the Commission, amendments to the Code of Virginia is not within your regulatory authority. That is under the regulatory authority of the General Assembly. With that, there is a allocation of 10 minutes for the petitioner's presentation. Petitioners should be present. Approach the vote. Approach.
Who's going up, please?
And I'll get to this. Now, y'all's, this should be you right here.
Yep.
All right. There you go. And here's the mouse.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ladies and
Please raise your
gentlemen.
right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
My name is Willem Rosenberg.
Proceed.
Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I think everybody in this room has the common goal of wanting to prevent mortality of terrapins and crab pots. Scientists and conservationists want to preserve this iconic species, and I think watermen would be grateful for some mechanism to not have to deal with this bycatch. My name is Willem Rosenberg, and I'm a biologist at Ohio University. But I grew up and have played all my life in Chesapeake Bay, and I've also worked here doing my research, and also have worked as a commercial waterman, so I have some sense of what's involved. Okay, so let's start, and this is a book I published to document my expertise. Let's start by talking about the problem. The problem is that terrapins are attracted to crab pots. One of the reasons they're attracted to is because one of the popular baits to use in crab pots are razor clams, which is a preferred food of terrapins. The problem is also that their ability to hold their breath is shorter than the soak time of crab pots, so they end up drowning, right? And this results in a standard sort of background catch rate that can be as high as 1 terrapin in every 2 to 4 crab pot days. And it also results in catastrophic events in abandoned and ghost gear, such as what you see in this picture of a ghost pot from South Carolina. And Virginia is not immune to this sort of thing. Here are some pictures of ghost pots that have been shared with me, one from Virginia's Eastern Shore, one from the York River. Here's another one, or 2 more from Mob Jack Bay. So these are a commonplace occurrence within Virginia waters of Chesapeake Bay. So why is this terrapin mortality a problem? Well, first of all, terrapin populations have very slow growth rates. The graph on the left has year on the x-axis and the number of individuals. It's a modeling exercise that I started with 1,000 individuals. And if you look, the terrapin curve, which represents the dashed line at the bottom, is a very, very slow growth rate. The next line up is striped bass, and the next line up is our blue crabs. And what you see is that in the case of terrapins, you may, over 60 years, increase by 1,000 individuals, maybe less, whereas blue crabs increase to more than 1 billion, starting with 1,000 individuals. Okay? So what this means is that the biology of terrapins is not like standard commercial fisheries that can sustain some level of mortality. It's more like these animals, elephants, whales, and sharks, that when you start to harvest the adults, we've all seen the populations of these types of organisms crash. So the underlying factors that contribute to this is that terrapins take 8 years before they can start to lay eggs. They lay very few eggs in a single season. And many of those nests and eggs are destroyed by predators that are happy to eat them. Another factor contributing to why terrapin mortality is a problem is that they have very limited home ranges. And these are the home ranges of 4 individuals that were monitored through sonic tracking. And they represent very small areas, less than 2 to 3 kilometers, and in some cases, even less than 1 kilometer. And this shows more than 20,000 hits on our receivers for each of these animals over a course of an entire year. And what you see is that they are very limited and restricted in the area where they occur. So if you have the combination of crab pots catching and killing turtles in this local area, what happens is the population very quickly becomes extirpated or starts declining as a consequence of the mortality in crab pots. Now, thankfully, there's a very simple solution. And it's this thing right here, a little bycatch reduction device. This device fits inside the funnels of the crab pots. You can see some examples on the slide, and it functions by restricting the height of the opening so that the turtle cannot enter into the crab pot, right? These have been around for quite some time, and I did some work in 1998 looking at, the effectiveness of these devices in terms of crab pots and for affecting turtle catch. And what we did is we had 2 different types of crab pots. We had modified crab pots and we had standard, the normal types of crab pots. The modified crab pots were fished in shallow waters near shore. They were tall so the turtles could get a breath of air. And the standard pots were fished in deeper water where we would try to avoid catching turtles. The graph on the right shows the breakdown of the catch that we had in terms of number 1s and number 2s. And this is looking at the size of the turtles, or sorry, the crabs. And what we see is that there was no difference in the size of number 1s or number 2s with crab pots, whether they were control with no BRD, a 5 by 10 BRD, or a 4.5 by 12 centimeter BRD. So no effective size, and we also, I'd like to point out that during this study, the biggest crab that we caught, which was over 8 inches point to point, was caught in a crab pot with a 1.75 BRD. The graph on the left illustrates the number of individual crabs that were actually caught, broken down by peelers, legal females, 1s and 2s, and there is no effect on the number or the size or the number of crabs that were caught of either of these classes by the BRDs. Okay. And here's the impact on terrapins. On the this graph, we see the crab pot type and ones that were equipped with a BRD. We caught about 110 animals with BRDs. With the 4.5 by 12 BRD, we reduced the catch of terrapins by 80%. With the 5 by 10 BRD, we reduced the catch of terrapins by 50%. All right, and this actually led to Maryland requiring the use of BRDs in their recreational crab pot fisheries. Now, the results of this study have been, led to numerous studies that have robustly come to the same conclusion over and over again. More than 20 studies that have been done. If you look at the graphs on the right, what we're seeing is the percent change in terms of total catch and the number of studies that were reported on our y-axis. What we see is that all of the studies, whether using a 1.75 or a 5 centimeter BRD, all demonstrated that there was a reduction in the number of turtles caught, right? And then the two graphs above that show the impact on the crabs, and the 5 centimeter BRD has absolutely no effect on the number of crabs that were caught, and the 1.75 centimeter BRD or inch BRD has a slight effect on the number of crabs that were caught. Right. So in conclusion then, I'd just like to say that low terrapin population growth rates combined with their small home ranges results in extreme sensitivity to mortality that's brought in by crab pots, right? And you may hear today people say, I've never caught a turtle in my life. And we've been using crab pots in Chesapeake Bay for over 75 years now. And it may be that those populations were extirpated years and years ago where the current day watermen would not expect to find or experience catching crab pots, right? The BRD is a very simple, cost-effective mechanism to reduce terrapin bycatch, and it creates a win-win situation for both the conservationists and the watermen. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission?
Let me ask you, you mentioned Maryland requires it. On the report I have, it says Delaware, Maryland, and Florida only required for recreational. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Well, what about the commercial?
Well, in Maryland, I can't speak to Florida or.
Speak in a microphone, please, for the record.
Sorry. I can't speak to New Jersey or New Jersey does require it for the commercial. I can't speak to Florida or New York. Maryland only requires it because they do not allow crabbing, commercial crabbing using crab pots in the tributaries of the bay, right? So it's their commercial crabbers are restricted to working in the main stem of the bay, and therefore they are not crabbing as frequently in the areas where the recreational crabbers, that is private landowners who are allowed to set 2 pots from their pier in Maryland.
Majority of the,
Right, and
majority of
deep
the
water- and
fishery
deep water.
in Maryland is
Deep
trout
water-
line.
Deep water,
Yeah,
too.
it's a trout line fishery in
Yeah,
Maryland.
it's a
But you say New Jersey requires it for the commercial fishery, but it's only in small areas for the commercial fishery, not the entire commercial fishery.
Yeah, I believe they have the same regulation if it's any crab pot within 150 yards of shore.
Yeah, how much water does that affect in New Jersey?
It would affect a whole lot in Chesapeake Bay.
I don't know. Something different. Mr. Erskine?
Sir, you had testified that in the beginning of your presentation that there was a significant mortality that the turtles would see after having laid the eggs.
Yes.
So what percentage mortality occurs there at that stage?
It can be as high as 100%, but depending on the area and the predators that are running on nesting beaches, which is primarily raccoons and foxes, it's usually as between 70 and 100% mortality rates of the eggs. A safe estimate is that about 2% of the eggs actually make it to the point of. Yes.
Ms. Edwards?
In Virginia, did you actually do a study of the crab pots?
I did not, but there's.
Microphone.
Sorry. I did not, but Randy Chambers, who is here in the audience, has done studies in Virginia of crab pots and BRDs. So he might be able to speak to specific sizes and requirements with regard to distance from shore, with regard to that.
Mr. Hadley?
You say this would be a cost-effective way to reduce the terrapin catch. How many, excuse me, what would be the cost, considering 4 of these have to go into a pot at a time?
Yeah, I made these myself, so any ingenious waterman could certainly do it that way at very low cost. This is simply 9-gauge wire, and it takes about 30 seconds to make one. The wires, I haven't priced it recently, but I guess it's a couple pennies. They're commercially available. The wire ones like this are like anywhere from 50 to 60 cents, and then there's some other plastic ones that are being made that I'm not a fan of personally, but they are quite a bit more expensive, in excess of $1.
Follow-up. Considering there's so many versions of the crab pot on the Chesapeake Bay, and the funnel sizes are different for a lot of different watermen, how would you find one of the excluders to work for all different pots?
Well, I would recommend, based on the crabs that we caught in our crab pots, we caught the biggest crabs with the 1.75 inch BRD, 1 3/4 inch BRD. So that size BRD would allow any waterman to potentially catch any crab in Chesapeake Bay.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. One thing I would like to add on cost, because I seen him walk in the room and sit down, there's the colonel. It might seem like a lot of free time for commercial watermen for making 30 seconds at a pop, I get that. But if you can make it regulation enforceable, then law enforcement has to have gauges. They have to be certified. They have to be maintained certification. So you're talking hundreds and hundreds of gauges, and they would have to be continuously maintained, the certification. We have that issue now with many other species, but that we work with in culling gauges. So just FYI, there's more to it than just throwing a piece of wire together for 30 seconds. There's a domino effect here for enforcement.
So if I may offer a suggestion, is that out of simplicity for enforcement, one of the best things that could occur is that they are required on all crab pots. And the job of the resource policeman would then be to simply pull up the crab pot, see if their BRD is present. He or she doesn't have to worry about estimating if it's 150 meters from shore or.
I mean, that's good for you, but I can tell you're not in law enforcement. That doesn't work in the world of criminal enforcement.
Well, I'm not in
This
law
is
enforcement.
a criminal, we do criminal offenses here. This is not civil. So you could save that comment because that won't work in court. So but anyways, any questions?
I had one, sir.
Yes, sir.
As far as you quoted on your graph, as far as the amount of time, as far as you did a comparison between the blue crab, rockfish, and the terrapin itself. Now, in your study, what's the current population of this terrapin, and what kind of decrease in population over the course of a study have you spent any time in looking in that, and how is that relatable back to just the crab pot itself in comparison to the predators that naturally prey on them anyhow?
I don't personally have any data, but, I talk to a lot of terrapin biologists, and one of the recurring themes that I, encounter from colleagues throughout their range, and they have a very broad geographic range, all the way from Galveston Bay in Texas up to Cape Cod, all the way along the coast. And the repeated theme that comes up is, I was working in a population, and all of a sudden crab pots showed up in my population, and my population is gone. After 3 years, it's gone. They have nothing left to work with.
And the predominant, and I apologize if this is in the information that we were provided. There was a decent amount of information provided, which is awesome for pre-read ahead. As far as coastal area, where predominantly are they? Are they further up the tributaries of, say, the bay, or are they more centralized around the Bay region? I mean, help me out, because I've seen these, but I don't see them in my neck of the woods necessarily.
Right, so you can expect to see them in the coastal bays, and then you can expect to see them in the tributaries of the Chesapeake Bay up to about 10 to 12 parts per thousand salinity.
Okay.
So, I don't know exactly where those boundary lines fall in the tributaries of Virginia. I
That
apologize.
fluctuates
Yeah,
depending on time of
it
year.
fluctuates, and, I've seen them, I would say you have to go by the average salinity, because I've had years when we've had a lot of rain, and my study sites have been, the salinity has dropped all the way down to zero, and we're still catching terrapins. But then by the end of the summer, the salinity is back up to 10 to 12 parts per thousand.
Any more questions? Mr. Erskine?
Thanks, sir. I have one more question. Is the Diamondback terrapin population in Virginia listed as endangered or threatened?
They are considered a Virginia species of special concern. I think my colleague Rachel Matthews is going to speak to their exact status.
Okay.
But they're on the radar of the Natural Resource Agency here.
But they're not currently listed?
They're not currently listed as endangered, no.
Okay.
And, one of the things we definitely want to avoid is getting them federally listed. And there are currently pending petitions with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
Any more questions? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief Chris, what's our next move?
You demoted me today, I noticed.
Oh, my bad. Commissioner.
It's all good. I gotta pick on you occasionally.
It's 100 degrees outside.
I know, it's gonna get that way in here too, I have a
in here.
feeling.
I'm not just a headlight.
AC on in here?
No, I'm sorry.
I'm getting ready to take this coat
Right there.
It's getting hot.
It's all you.
That's why I didn't wear a tie today. I'm fearing to get hot.
It's not making it big. Oh, enable, that's why. Sorry. There we go. Okay, took a couple seconds. Good morning, everybody. I'm just going to give you a lot of, Dr. Rosenberg kind of stole some of my thunder. I mean, it's his thunder, it's just, we're just borrowing from some of his, but a lot of what he said, we're going to just kind of repeat as well. Terrapins typically live along, as you said, from Cape Cod to through the Gulf, mostly in brackish waters. They were heavily harvested in the 1880s through the early 1900s. Currently, because of encroachment from human development, it's affecting their habitat. Their habitat is the marsh edges and into the marshes. Their population status, somebody asked about that. They are listed as vulnerable with the IUCN Red List Threatened Species. They're on the Appendix 2 for CITES. CITES is for imports, exports. So to export, it's on that list, not to be exported. It's a Tier 2 within the state, which means it's a very high conservation need by the Department of Wildlife Resources from their Wildlife Action Plan. So that's the status of it right now. It's not endangered. It's, in our state, it's considered it needs high conservation need. Terrapins, as far as they are with fisheries, as Dr. Rosenberg said, they're caught in crab pots. Because crab pots are set near their ideal habitat. Their ideal habitat is shallow marsh. So setting in small creeks, shallow creeks near the edge of the marsh, you're more likely to catch them in those areas. according to the doctor, 15 to 78% of the local population can be captured in a single year from crab pots. Long soak times in derelict pots also increase mortality. So longer soak times, which occur, mostly in recreational fisheries compared to commercial. As he said, there are strong site fidelity, meaning the local mortality could reduce extirpating an area. And you cannot, from my own experience working in Georgia, you cannot take these terrapins and move them to another area and try to repopulate them. They just don't behave properly. As my friend Mark Dodd, who's a turtle biologist in Georgia, said, they just go kind of wonky and they don't really function properly. The males are more likely to be captured because the females are usually larger. As far as commercial fisheries are in the state, it was mentioned, the Monterey Bay Aquarium Seafood Watch has guidelines for consumers for different fisheries. And in 2019, they looked at blue crabs, and they looked at 14 different fisheries. 12 of those were pot fisheries. And recently, when they updated this, they put us on the avoid list. Virginia is on the avoid list with 8 other states. So there's only 4 states that have a good alternative for crab pots, and that's New Jersey, Delaware, Florida, and Maryland, because they require, and primarily the reason why we were put on that list is because we did not have terrapin management. So we tried to fight that for a while. We said that we did have some regulations in place, but Seafood Watch is, once they put something out, it's very hard to get them to change anything. We here call, Dr. Rosenberg was calling bycatch reduction devices. We also call them terrapin excluded devices, or TEDs. So if I use those terms, they're synonymous to each other. And this just shows where they would be placed in a trap. If you have 4 funnels, you'd need 4 of them. If you have 2, you only need 2. VIMS has a website that shows you how to build your own. The example that's shown here is a very popular model that's produced by a company called Top Maine, and if you look, I can't zoom in on one of them, it says Top Me is what it looks like, but the company is Top ME. So Top. We called them up this week and asked them what the price was right now for individually. They would be $1 for each is what they would cost. Now, I'd assume if you bought them in bulk, they'd be less of that. But that is the price. We've heard a number of folks say different prices. So if you needed 4 of them in a trap, that would cost $4, roughly $4 per trap, based on what we were told. This is just a list of, Dr. Chambers put out a paper in 2018 listing. This is just a whole list of studies that have been done with terrapins. And you can see the ones down in Virginia, most of them down, Control L. There we go. There's a lot of studies down here with Virginia showing that there's usually no change in crab size, but mostly there were a few that had no change in crab catch, but most of them did show a decline in crab catch. And this is just taking that same information and putting it on similar graph that you saw before that's just showing, the percent of studies and how that affected crab catch. So about 17 studies had no impact, but 18 studies did have some kind of impact on crab catch. And there were a few that showed a positive catch, but generally it's either no impact or there is some kind of impact on crab catch from all the studies on that were evaluated. There really isn't too much change in size of the crabs for the most part. And yes, there is a decrease in terrapins catch when you're putting terrapin excluders in the devices, so as was mentioned previously. Here are the regulations by state. New York does require them, and also shows the average commercial harvest for the last 10 years of blue crabs. You can see that Maryland is #1 on the East Coast in harvest, Virginia second, North Carolina third. The other states are all relatively, much lower than those 3 states I just named. New York does require them in all pots, commercially and recreationally. New Jersey does as well. In creeks that are less than 150 feet wide, not 150 yards. It's 150 feet wide. So if the creek is less than that, it's required. Delaware requires them in recreational pots. Maryland requires them in recreational pots. In Virginia, we have an incentive where when you buy your 5-pot recreational license, you get a discount if you get the license that requires TEDs. North Carolina has just implemented a different type of TED that they're using, and they have 2 terrapin management areas that are both along the coast, along the Barrier Islands, that don't extend into the sounds too much and do not extend into the tributaries. And Florida requires them recreationally. So there's only 2 states on the East Coast that are requiring them commercially at this point, New York and New Jersey. In 2016, I just mentioned, the General Assembly voted to incentivize the TED for the recreational pot license. So you can get a recreational crab pot license that you're allowed 5 pots per person. If you get that license with the excluders, it's $36. If you get it without the excluders, it's $46. The Code of Virginia, we also have a section that allows everybody in the state to fish 2 crab pots without getting a license. And they don't need to purchase a license for that. So that's a little bit different. One of the things that we found when we've talked to folks, a lot of folks who get these traps, and I've had this personal experience on the water where they think the cull rings are the excluders. So, we need to do some education there. In 2021, the staff recommended to the commission to require TEDs in recreational crab pots, but that was denied in a June meeting in 2021. Recreational fishing, this is from a study from Dr. Jones and Asford from 2021. It estimated the recreational activity and recreational harvest in blue crabs in Virginia. They estimated 43,000 people are using crab pots. So if they're using 2 pots each, that's 86,000 pots. So 57% of those were fishing from shore. In 2024, that 5-pot license that we have, we sold 1,070 licenses, so estimated roughly about 5,000 pots there. So recreationally, if you use the estimate from 2021 of 86,000 pots and 5,000 from the licensed, we have about 91,000 recreational pots in the state. As written, this petition does not include the non-licensed people fishing 2 pots. It says it's only for licensed recreational and commercial crab pots. So that portion of the population, that portion of the recreational fishery is not being taken care of in this petition. And that's about 95% of the recreational activity and effort. And so we don't know who those people are. This study, that's the last study that we have on that. You don't have to have, it's everybody, just like everybody in the state's allowed to have 1 bushel of oysters a day. Everybody in the state's allowed to fish 2 crab pots a day without a license. So this petition does not include those people that do not require a license, and those folks are typically fishing those traps off their dock close to the marsh edge. Commercially, this is just showing a graph in 2024. We have 5 different pots categories, less than 85 pots, up to 127 pots, 170 pots, up to 255, and up to 425. And it shows the number of licenses that was sold and the number were active. And active refers to if you reported landings for that year. So in 2024, we had 154,174 active crab pots, an estimate. And then we had, as far as peels, we had 32,000. So that's roughly 186,000 pots. Total, if everybody fished, with all that latent effort, if all the people who did not fish, we'd have roughly 320,000 crab pots commercially in the water. But right now it's substantially less. A lot of folks get their licenses, but they're not always active each year. So some of the characteristics recreationally, there's fewer pots in the bay. It is more likely recreational people are going to be fishing in smaller creeks, off their docks, associated with terrapin habitats towards the marsh edge. Those pots are typically, recreational people do not typically check their pots as often as a commercial fisherman. But as I said, because of things like people think the cull rings are terrapin excluded device, they're difficult to educate. So it's trying to get that word out to folks that what they have to do. The economic cost to them is if you have 2 funnels, it would be 2 funnels per pot, it would be $8. It would be $20 for those, $20 total if you have 4 funnels for those people with those 5-pot licenses. Commercially, there's more pots in the bay. Often they move their pots they follow the crabs. They move them across from different areas across the season. They check their pots more frequently, and the economic impact would be between $340 and $1,700 based on your license type. And this does not include the potential revenue loss if the harvest was reduced by putting in the excluders. This is just showing a graph of commercial license sales and recreational. The commercial license sales are in blue and the recreational is in orange. And you can see that recreational licenses for those 5-pot licenses is going up. And we're seeing this in all our commercial fisheries. It's graying of the fleet. People are getting out, people are retiring, we're not getting new people in. So we're seeing this with everything. It's all of our fisheries are seeing this decline. So we're seeing this decline in Dr. Chambers' paper in 2018. He said, overall for commercial crabbing, a smaller percentage of very large total number of pots intersects with terrapin habitat. For recreational crabbing, a large percentage of a smaller total number of pots intersects with terrapin. So recreational is less pots, they're more likely to be in terrapin habitat. Commercial is many more pots, but they're less likely to be in terrapin habitat. And to give you an idea what this 150-yard terrapin buffer along the shoreline would look like, this is what it looks like when you do it on a full scale. It's not a very big buffer. It's a very small area. So when you do it, that red line is the 150 yards from the shore. You really can't see much from that. So, but also, if a creek is less than 300 yards wide, that means that creek, you would be required, because the whole area you would have to have required to have the excluders in the devices in any of those creeks. There we go. And this just says, we didn't look at all of them. What we tried to do is look at some creeks that we knew were less than 300 yards wide. So we looked at some: Hampton Creek, Back Creek, Sarah's Creek on the York, Urbana Creek, Tuskegee Creek on the Rappahannock. Almost the entire seaside is most of those areas are less than that. So these are just a few of those creeks that we know are less than 300 yards wide. So that if you were going to fish, you'd have no choice. You'd have to have a excluder in your pot at that time, or decide to go fish somewhere else. And just to blow that up for Hampton Roads, here we are sitting right here, Little Fort Monroe right here, and we have Hampton Creek, Back River, and Bennett's Creek up here, and I'm going to blow up a little bit more, and you can just see Hampton Creek. Hampton Creek was one of the creeks that would be required, that if you were going to fish at, you'd have to have an excluded device because the creek is less than 300 yards wide. So it's 150 yards from each shoreline, so but we have a number of those. We didn't look at all of them. We just wanted to give some examples to show that there was a video that went out this week too. Somebody produced it, showed in our creek that, and in the video said in our creek right here, it's less than 300 yards, so we would have to be required to use these excluders if we wanted to fish in that creek still. Public comments, as Mr. Grist mentioned, it was from March 10th to March 31st. We had 35 comments in support. We had 19 of those comments representing 18,541 signatures. We had 424 comments opposed to the petition. 20 of those comments represented 20,288 people, or signatures. With CMAQ, our Crab Management Advisory Committee, in October 2020, there was some support for TEDs in recreational pots, but there wasn't support for TEDs in commercial pots. Their concerns at that time were the effects on the commercial harvest. Commercial crabbers check their pots more often. Recreational crabbers are more likely to set in terrapin habitat, just as I've said before. And the recreational excluders would need education and enforcement. And as I said, in June of 2021, the committee chose not to make any motions or recommend to support or deny the proposed establishment of mandatory TEDs in recreational crab pots at that time. That June, we took it before our commission, and the commission voted not to approve it at that time and sent it back to CMAQ for further discussion. And that brings us to our petition right now. On May 29th of this year, the staff met with CMAQ again, and there was a motion by CMAQ to support the TEDs only in recreational crab pots, but it fell because of lack of a second of the motion. And there was and then the next motion was from CMAQ to recommend denying the petition, and it passed unanimously with one abstention. VIMS produced an official response on May 6th, and it was a combination of comments from Dr. Lukenbach, Ron Lipschitz, who's the crustaceologist there, Dr. Chambers, who's at William & Mary and studies terrapins, and Kirk Haven, I think was the third. I believe Kirk Haven. Brookhaven, I believe, was the other one who's worked with Derek Potts in the past. And their recommendation would strongly recommend the commission approve this petition and initiate the rulemaking process. Their recommendations were to refine the terrapin habitat definition, consider only requiring TEDs in recreational pots, and they use the term you get more bang for your buck by doing that, and have educational materials to discuss alternatives to the plastic TEDs. So, and that letter is in your packet. And I could take any questions anybody has.
Any questions?
I have one, sir.
Mr. White?
Is there any data on commercial pots of what percentage of the commercial crabbers use waters that fall within the 150-yard versus open waters?
We're trying to. We don't have any definite information on that, but we tried real hard. The best we could do is to an area or a creek, and a lot of these creeks do not have their own designation in our database when reporting, so we don't have that information. You know.
So there could be a possibility for commercial crabbers that they could, if they would have to put it in pots within the 150, but outside they would not. So they would have some
Right, they have
pots
that
with
option.
and some pots without, which
Yeah.
could kind of be, I guess, troublesome for them, moving pots
Yes.
around.
It would be, if they were moving pots, I mean, it would be, I'd let a crabber speak to that, but I would think that would be,
Sure.
a burden to go ahead and pull these traps up.
Just do them all.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Any more questions? Yeah. Mr. Preston?
Chief, I have a couple questions. I don't know if you don't mind going back to the slide where it's a quote from 2001 on the recreational pots, and it compared to data, it's fairly well back. I didn't want to interrupt by any means. I think
This one?
yes.
Okay.
All right, perfect. So in 2001, up to, how did they get this? How did we get this number, this data?
Oh, you'd have to ask that.
I'm just, so if every person is entitled to a two-pot,
It was
this is just a wild
very
guess.
involved, Dr. Jones did a very involved phone survey.
Wow.
And so, and they called folks and asked if they, a series of questions. So they asked if they crabbed last week, if they crabbed within the last year, and from that, they were able to come up with those estimates.
It's very interesting. So, and my next question is on that 5-pot, so Virginia does have that incentive program, I think it's, 36 and 46 or whatever it is, dollars. And actually, there was a few years back, I believe, prior to that, there was one season for the recreational pot, I believe it was mandatory. I might be wrong, but regardless, my two boys ended up where they thought they were big watermen when they were, like 7 and 4. And so anyhow, I outfitted them with the pots. So I have those pots still to this day, or I had the extruders. And so I've put them in use myself just to do my own scientific experiment within Namadog Creek. I noticed a significant difference in a pot that's set within about 50 yards from one another myself. And that's not with the wire device, that's with the orange device that I picked up from RW's Sporting Goods about 10 years ago. But how are those recreational pots being regulated for those who spend that $36 to have that, this bycatch device in there? Who's regulated to make sure that those individuals are even have them? And if they're, obviously, we don't have the tools here with VMRC to be able to even check to see if they're the correct size.
It's, as you can see up there, 60% of the sales of that 1,075 pot licenses bought the license without TEDs.
Right.
And so they paid more money.
Yeah, they paid more money, but for the 40% that did.
Yeah.
So how are we regulating to make sure that they truly
It would
do
have to be a
have them?
law enforcement issue. They'd have to see, I mean, I know personally, if I'm on the water and I see somebody, I'll ask them, and that's how, I was one of the people that they said, oh, here it is right here. I'm like, no, that's a Coleraine.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, for the law enforcement officer, whether that's the Department of Game or a VMRC police officer, how do they, you don't have a calibrated tool to be able to measure this? That's already been stated, so
Well,
that's just like,
measuring it is one thing, seeing if it's actually in there, if there's a device
a whole
in there.
nother,
Yeah,
right.
that's a little simpler, but to measure it would be, as Commissioner Green said, that would be a labor-intensive thing. But you would have to, you'd have to pull the trap and see if it had an excluder, and then you'd have to see the person to see their license too.
Correct. And so I guess to my point is that we have a regulation or a program in Virginia that we allow folks to buy something at a cheaper cost, but we have no way to even regulate those 60% are stupid.
That's right.
They should just buy it without, and then, because nobody can check them there afterwards. We have no tools.
Well, Commissioner.
I'm
Commissioner
not trying
Preston.
to encourage that, but
Well, I'll note for the record, he's not in our law enforcement division either.
I'm not. Though I give praise to them. But no, I guess my biggest question was the 2001. How did that data get produced? And
Yeah, I
you
can-
gave your best response.
We have a slide, but I'd probably spend an hour going over it. I'd be more than
I'm
willing to
thankful that
give you
you-
the paper. But it was through a phone survey, an extensive phone survey.
Understood. I didn't get a phone call.
I get ready to say 40, if you can get 43,000 people to answer the telephone nowadays, I want to work
Well,
where
that's
you
an
work.
estimate. Everything is by an estimate. and,
No, I'm just joking.
They could do a number of phone calls, and based on that, they know what the percent error is, and then they can extrapolate out.
And I get it. One thing I would say, just to add so you know, that's one of the kind of gaps that DWR officers and our officers run in. There's not a database like for commercial where you can just they can run it right there and see who's got a current license. Well, that's not the same. It's not the same access. And it would be a very robust system to build. It probably would be very cost prohibitive. Mr. Erston, you have a question?
Yeah, Chief Gear. So I just want to kind of follow along here with the two crab pots that does not require a license, recreational, does not require a license. Would they be required to have the TED if they were within 150 yards?
Not in this petition. This petition in the summary said it's only for recreational, licensed recreational and commercial crab pots.
Mrs. Kellum?
With that being said, in your opinion, wouldn't that be where the problem lies? Because those are the pots that are normally left unfished by recreational users that are here weekend to weekend. Isn't that where you would see most of the problem?
I would think that people getting the 5 pots, from my experience, are probably going out in a boat and setting them somewhere. People with the 2 pots are probably most likely fishing them off their dock, which is, close to the shoreline. So it's, the closer you are to the shoreline, the more likely you are to interact with terrapins.
Thank you.
And from law enforcement perspective, in my experience, because that's where I came from, they'll tell you, it's a mixed bag. You'll run into way more, even in the boat, that doing the 2-pot one. It is very rare to catch somebody fishing one that actually has a license. Usually it's the 2-pot. So,
Would this petition may have made more sense to put the rings for recreational and not commercial? It sounds like the problem to me is with the recreational crabbers. That's where most of the terrapins are being caught.
Are you asking my opinion?
Yeah.
we get in trouble now.
I would say that's what we proposed back in 2021. And we did have the support of Dr. Chambers and the VIMS folks on that. I think it's, it's a group of folks we don't have a lot of information on. We're estimating everything on them because we don't have any information at all. The 5-pot license, what they're supposed to do at the end of the year is send us in a report of what they caught. We don't get those very often. Some people religiously give us great information. Most people don't send anything in. So, but recreational, typically those folks are going to be fishing closer to the marsh edge in or around the terrapin habitat. And they would typically soak those pots longer than a commercial fisherman.
I was talking about both groups, the 5-potters and the 2-potters.
Right, I'm
Just make it make that the
I'm throwing all
requirement.
recreational people in together.
Yeah.
All together, yeah. All inclusive. Any more questions?
I have a more or less comment, just to make sure I'm on the right page. When the petition was presented to us, I made a note, and just make sure I'm tracking this. We are to either accept this petition in its entirety or not at all. Am I correct?
It's correct.
Okay, so just to make just for my peers, when we're talking about 2 pots out, 5 pots in type status, that's a big difference.
And commercials in.
100%, yes.
I have one question for you, Chief. One of your first slides mentioned something about harvest of these, like over harvest of these animals way back when. Were they harvested for food, commercial purposes? Okay, it was a rhetorical question to a certain extent. Is there any harvest allowed by DWR now?
No.
None, not even recreationally?
I don't think so, no.
I don't think so. Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because I was like, wow, there was a lot of harvest there way back when.
That was a lot of turtle soup.
Yeah, it was. Any more questions? Well, thank you, Chief. Great presentation. Deputy Commissioner Grist, next move. I got you right this time, right title. See, I got to be intentional. Tell my baseball players, be intentional.
Should be public comment. Check here. Yep. So the next step is actually going to be your public comment period with the time limit determined by the chair. So we're into that.
When does the petitioner get a rebuttal? At the end of public comment?
After public comment.
Okay, so-
There'll be a 5-minute rebuttal period.
5-minute rebuttal period at the end of the, all right. So I will start with the speakers in support. Anyone that wishes to speak in support, do we have them signed in, First Sergeant Pitt? Is there anybody signed in that wants to speak? So much legible, okay. Remember, everyone, you got 3 minutes. I'm gonna try to hold you to it best I can. Go ahead, Joey. Are you gonna do the rebuttal? Okay.
Randy Chalmers.
Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Randy Chambers. I am at William and Mary. I'm director of a environmental lab there, and for the last 20 years, I've been studying diamondback terrapin populations here in Virginia. And when I study these terrapins, the method that I use for capturing them is putting out commercial-style crab pots, and I set them in nearshore water, and the turtles swim into the pots. And they would drown if they were in those pots without modifications that I make to them so that they still have access to air. The point is that they are a nearshore creature, and any crabbing that's done in nearshore environments is going to impact these terrapin populations. I've also done a number of studies looking at these bycatch reduction devices, as have been reviewed by other speakers, and yes, there is a tremendous decrease in terrapin bycatch with bycatch reduction devices, and sometimes a decrease in the commercial crab catch. It's sometimes a very small percentage, but it's very typically a decrease. So that is something to note. But I also note that New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, North Carolina, and Virginia, and Florida all have these bycatch reduction device regulations, and they are having to deal with issues associated with the complexities of where they are installed and so forth, and how they're going to enforce it. So I wouldn't get too tied up in the difficulties of trying to put this thing together, and instead try to initiate that rulemaking process so that we can move forward on this. Thanks.
Any questions for Speaker? Commissioner Hand?
Yeah.
A couple questions.
Yeah.
From your studies and experience, is there a big difference when you're looking at distance off a marsh shoreline instead of like a sandy beach shoreline?
Yeah, there is. And terrapins have habitat requirements for marsh habitat, but they also, because females have to get onto land to nest, also have requirements for access to land. So a bulkhead, for example, will block their access. But a sandy beach is an area where terrapins would come up to nest. Right. So they have requirements for both marsh habitat and also upland, adjacent upland habitat.
Yeah, and another question, in your opinion, I mean, I see 150-yard rules. Are most of them going to be within much shorter distance from the shore, like off marshes? I mean, where I know personally where I've caught them is like right off marsh, like within 5 yards. But
no, they're definitely out farther and will be swimming out farther. My experience has been on the York River and looking at creeks along the York River, and the Shallow areas, yes, is where a lot of terrapins spend their time, but they are also swimming. You see their heads out in the middle of these creek systems that are much deeper than, 5 or 10 feet. They're deeper water habitats, but they are adjacent within 150 yards of the marsh habitat.
Thank you.
Yep,
Any more questions? Thank you.
thanks.
Hold on a second, Joe. Hold on. I want to make one more comment. Let the record reflect, he does not represent law enforcement either. I will get my expert opinions on not getting wrapped around the axles on the criminal side from the colonel, who's an expert and deals with the officers of the court, the prosecuting attorneys, and the judges is who we deal with. We get our opinions on how to enforce and how to word it from them because they're the fact finders. So I just want to be clear. You guys can say, don't get wrapped around the axles, but I came through that environment. We do things in this room, and you guys ignore it, and then it's not enforceable, and judges tell us not to bring it there no more. So if you don't have respect for the court, then don't bring it for a regulation. So proceed. Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
J.C. Hudgens, Virginia Watermen's Association. Good morning, Commissioner and Associate Commissioner. The Virginia Watermen's Association does not support this petition to install BRDs in commercial crab pots. This would be devastating both financially and economically for Virginia crabbers. This comes at a time when Virginia crabbers have seen a 50 to 100% increase in expenses related to crab pots. Last year, Virginia saw an 18% decrease in blue crab production, not because there wasn't any crabs, but because watermen can't afford the increases in the cost of goods and have found other fisheries to participate in. The plastic BRDs I bought this one at Ocean Products down in Matthews, and everybody's talked about the cost. I paid $1.50 for this one right here, this plastic one. It takes everybody fishes 4 funnel crab pots, depending on whether you have a 9 mesh, 10 mesh, 11 mesh, or 12 mesh funnel. You would judge your size by that. This would put the cost with the wire ties or pig rings. If you have a 500 pot license, this would be $8 per pot. Simple math, 500 pots. It's $4,000 that this is going to cost a Virginia crabber that has a large license. You have to put these in this way. You have to put them in when you make the crab pot. You can't put them in after you do the crab pot. So that's something that's really concerning. One place in Delaware I found on Facebook sells the stainless steel rings for $7 per pot, plus wire ties or pig rings. As you can see, this would be very expensive to implement. This petition says they have not seen any reduction in crab catch. Every crab I have talked to that have tried these have seen a reduction in larger crabs, both number one, and nobody's talked about sponge crabs. In my area, we catch a lot of sponge crabs on the shore of the bay within 150 yards of the shoreline. So it affects the female sponge crabs that are used for picking crabs. It's very important also, even though they're not as economically viable as the number one males. Also, crab pots have to be constantly cleaned to remove the marine growth by pressure washing or dipping in hot water. This is a really bad problem everybody has now in Virginia waters because everything is so hot. The plastic BRDs will be the first to get dirty and will certainly be damaged when doing this requiring changing out at more expense. You hit this with a 4,000 PSI pressure washer, I guarantee you're going to damage it. If you damage it, you can't put it back in the pot. You got to build a new pot.
Mr. Hudgens, I'm sorry to do this to you, but I'm gonna hold a tight ship today, and you're out
Okay.
of time.
Am I all right?
Yes, you're.
Oh, my Lord.
So, I'm gonna treat you the same as I do everybody else.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Hold on a second. Is there any questions from the commission? Questions from the commission? I think you touched it all, but thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker. Cinnamon. I've gotten used to saying that. I've seen you at these meetings. We have some regulars here today.
Yes,
Please raise your-
unfortunately, yes.
Raise your right hand, please. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and the microphone for the record, please.
Monica Sheneman. Okay, do I get started now?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So first, I want to take a moment to mention what this day is costing those in attendance today. All your watermen, raise your hand out there, please. All right, thank you so much. At a minimum, $1,000 dockside value for a smaller operation. Gas to get here, loss of the day. We're sacrificing because this is going to cost us. Petitioners don't have the percentage of what we are not going to catch. The economic impact study, Virginia is a $1.1 billion seafood industry. Now let's talk about time. JC talked about the cost of it. But really, the time that it's going to take us. Not to mention, now I got to purchase more crab pots just to dedicate to a BRD or a TED, whatever you want to call it, because I can't move my pots from the river to the creek. If I purchase 200 crab pots today, it's going to cost me $9,000 prior to the wire going up. Think about that. That's a lot. Now, one person with a 500-pot crab pot license is now going to possibly place 2,000 PFAS plastic into our waterways. Times that by how many pots Mr. Gear had said it was in the water. We deeply care about everything. My husband is a tribal citizen of the Patawomack Indian tribe, and when I spoke with Chief Charles Bullock, and his concern is the economic impact to the tribal citizens and every commercial waterman. This is going to be a huge deficit. He mentioned in his entire life he's never caught a diamondback terrapin, and he's happy to send a letter to the VMRC or to Richmond, whoever needs it. So really, guys, funnels are everything. That's the point I want to get across. Size matters. Funnels matter. You know, if you don't catch a crab in your line of crab pots, the first thing you're going to look at is your funnel. Everybody does their funnels differently for the crab that they want to catch. I'm concerned about our money crabs. Are we going to lose our big money crabs to this? It's going to hurt us. Bait's $34 a box now. We have to have those money crabs. So, in conclusion, the 150 yards from the shoreline, well, we might as well just go out of business. I mean, truly. Due to water quality, this is where our crabs are. We don't want to fish there. We have to fish there. The BRDs are not the solution to the decline. We have to look at other ways. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sheneman. Is there any questions from the commission? Thank you very much. I like the props too, by the way.
Well, I had a crab, but I got nervous and I didn't pull it out.
They pinch when they're alive, right?
Well, this one is cooked, but he's pretty big, and he did not want to get in that BRD.
Absolutely. Thank you. First Sergeant Pitt, next. Quarter, right? Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Please state your name and the microphone for the record.
Emery Rice for the record.
Proceed.
All right. A couple of things. Dr. Rosenberg said that razor clams were one of the baits that these turtles go after. I can't speak for all crabbers, but I can speak for most of us. We don't use razor clams that time of year when we're in the creeks and stuff like that. That's a springtime thing out in deeper water, out in the main stem of the bay. That's not something that we're going to use to draw them in there. He showed that picture of the ghost pot with, I don't know, 30, 40 shells in it. In the reading that you all got, it stated in there that ghost pot mortality is less than 1 turtle per pot. That's a big difference from that picture that he showed. Now, I do understand there are outliers, but that's what that was. Also made a comment that if we're not catching turtles, it's because they're already gone. But he said maybe. Maybe is not a scientific word. In his article, there's no proof that we were the ones who, my grandfather, father, were the ones that killed them out of there. 1997, in his study, he caught 0.17 turtles per pot, so basically 1 every 5 or 6 pots, and said that 15 to 78% of the population could be captured per year. 15 to 78%. Think about that range. That's not even, that's hard to be scientifically conclusive. In 2000, Hoyle and Gibbons did a similar study in South Carolina. 20 pots, 760 days. That's fishing 15,200 pots. They caught 21 captures of turtles, 19 turtles, 2 of them were caught twice. He says 6 to 11% could be removed. Out of those pots, 0.1% of those pots caught turtles versus 20% in the study Dr. Rosenberg did. What I'm trying to say, guys, is you've heard the financial cost that it's going to take us, not counting the economics. I mean, myself, I have a 425 license. My mate has a 255.
So at times, we can have 680 pots over. When we go in these rivers and creeks, we can have 510. We got to have about 1,200 pots to be able to do these because you're not taking these in and out over and over again. So this is something that would be very detrimental to all crabbers in the state of Virginia, recreational and commercial.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? I'm scared to ask any questions with the data you're throwing out. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can't read the name. How about we do this? Anyone wish to speak on this topic that hasn't spoke yet? Anyone that wish to speak on the petition right now, please come forward, one at a time. Come on forward, please. And Mr. Knott, come on forward. We'll let Mr. Jenkins close us out. Please raise your right hand for the record. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name for the record, please.
Name is Daniel Knott, and I'm a waterman out of Gloucester, Virginia. And I don't know if it's allowed to hand out handouts.
You can give them to the first sergeant, and he'll bring them up to us. You don't get anything back you present to us. So,
Okay, here today to talk about this excluder and how I actually tested these back in 2020 for Dr. Chambers. It was just a voluntary thing. I had also tested the biodegradable panels for VIMS. And kind of the thought process on this is, in my mind, a lot of this comes down to when I was doing the biodegradable panels, when my test showed what their hypothesis didn't show, all of a sudden I got written out of it. I was getting a lot of grant money to do these, not those tests were voluntary, but to build crab pots and test them out of the groups out of VIMS that I was working with. And so this particular picture is of my dash of my boat with 2 pots on this picture had the turtle excluders in them. And I will let you guess which 2 pots had those turtle excluders in them. These pots were put in Davis Creek. If anybody's familiar with Davis Creek, they're right by Miss Snow's dock in Davis Creek. And I was testing, it was in June of 2020, and I was testing to see where exactly, when I should pull my pots out of the bay and put them in the creeks. Well, I put 2 turtle excluder pots in that creek and kept checking them every once in a while. No crabs, no crabs, no crabs. Finally, I threw another pot in there and it was loaded. So I went ahead and put another line. This is the first day I worked them when there was another line. And you can see which 2 pots. A complete loss of catch. All those other pots had #1 jimmies. Monica was talking about that. You know, those are our money crabs. That's what we need. Now, I'm losing time at work doing what I do with the Veterans Program to be down here today. I don't crab for money. I never have. I crab to be out in the open after my military retirement. But I will tell you, there's another study here. I only had 1 copy of this, so I sent 1 copy. So if y'all could take a look at this. This is the CBSAC report from talking about the biodegradable panels. On that, I highlighted one area. The use of these landings, it's like picking and choosing science. The use of these landings could mislead the public, policymakers, regulators, and fishery managers regarding the impact of derelict traps on the blue crab fishery. Talking about a different device, same names. Same names that are here talking about this petition, same names that are talking about this biodegradable panel are very similar, okay? You'll see some nuances there. And so just know that I think that's what this is. The name on the petition, I also sent around a 990 form for the name on the petition for the Center for Biodiversity. $42 million. $22 million, and that goes to salaries. And so it's just one of those things where we have been fighting not only the biodegradable panels for the ghost pots, but also these turtle excluders for many years. I've lost a lot of days of work coming down to this commission and just researching stuff to fight these things. But that's what it is. These are actually the panels that I was given. I have 2 more boxes in my shed.
You're out of time. Forgot to ask you questions. Any questions for Mr. Knott? I'll have. Well, can you hold up one of your panels for me, please, since you're out of time? I'd like to see.
These were provided by Randy Chambers, and then these are the biodegradable panels that were provided by Kirk Havens.
And you used them on your gear?
I tested both of these, and I officially tested these for VMRC. All of it was a complete failure, complete loss of catch. but yet the science you're being presented shows that it's helps, even in some cases, helps your catch. And, oh, on the back side of that picture is an email correspondence between Randy Chambers and myself, where I relayed to him that I couldn't continue the test based on the loss of catch, and he agreed with it. And I offered him to come out on the boat and see it, which did not happen, but.
Thank you, Mr. Knott. Any more questions? Thank you. When y'all finish with the two forms without the picture, can you send them back? Because that's the only copies we have. I want the other commissioners to see it. Thank you. Next person who wishes to speak on this matter, please come forward, Mr. Jenkins. I've already started the clock on you, Mr. Jenkins. Thank you. Take your time, sir. Take your time. Mr. Jenkins is a frequent flyer at PRC for us, so I sit on that one as well. Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Douglas F. Jenkins, and I'm with the Twin River Waterman Association. And years ago, if you represent a Waterman Association, you got extra time.
That was years ago. I don't remember that.
Oh, yeah, I'll get that. Anyway, one important thing that no one has mentioned, early spring is when the pillow powders go to the creeks. Because the water temperature in the creeks is, can be 5 to 8 degrees warmer than it is in the river. So that's where the peelers are. So the shedders of Virginia, the soft crab industry, will suffer from this because you got 150 yards that these would have to be in. Also, my son and I done a study with VIMS at the request of VMRC on what effect the catch would be on having these restrictions in the pots to deter the terrapins. In our study, we did 25 pots, and we set them between ones that didn't have the retain in it. And our study showed that it cut the catch back considerable. I don't know what this doctor's done, what his studies are, or anybody else, but I know I was on the boat. We picked up 2 VIMS employees from Garrett's Marina, and we done that on the Rappahannock. So it does affect the catch of the crabs. And the important thing is the peeler bottles got to go to the creeks. First of the crab season, that's the main and most run of the season, is the first run. And that's something to consider. Not only are you causing them expense of these devices, you're cutting the catch back, and you're eliminating them going in the creek where the peelers are. I've cut my time short. Thank you, Commissioner. Got any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Jenkins? I got one. How long you been crabbing?
I've been crabbing, let's say I've been 90 in August, and I started crabbing when I was 12 years old. So you can do the math on that. But I can tell you something else about the terrapins. That was our main, back when I started crabbing in the mid and late 40s, we got more money for the terrapins than we did for the crabs. Baltimore had an open market, and we sold them by the bushel full, Now we're living in a different time. Terrapin is good meat. It is.
Well, we're not regulating the terrapins. We're not open season or anything. That's DWR. Thank you, Mr. Jenkins.
I mean, why should we protect them when they're so good to eat? Better than crab.
Thank you.
Anybody else got a question?
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Always good to see you. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak on this? Should I say you have to have seniority on Mr. Jenkins to speak at this point? No, come on. Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Please state your name for the record.
Nathan Everett. I was just noticing in the study, I didn't hear anything about like the maintenance of those turtle excluders, the plastic ones. It's at least my observation that the plastic on the pots, especially up in the creeks, guys tend to use the galvanized, and because the plastic stuff grows the barnacles quicker, and that's going to reduce the size entry hole for the crabs going in the pot. And essentially with the coal rings already being in the pot, these turtle excluders are going to basically put us crabbing with a slot size. And then I'm not going to duplicate what everybody else has already said, but we need those money crabs, and there's no way this is not going to restrict our large crabs. It does seem that the recreational sector needs more accountability. Thank you for your time.
Any questions? Thank you. Thank you. Anyone, please come forward. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but truth?
Yes, I
So help
do.
you God?
My name's Mark Sanford. I crab pot in Lynn Haven. By doing this, what you're basically doing is putting me out of business. All of Lynn Haven will be closed except a very, very small area. I'll have to move out by the channels. It's very, very congested, and I'll lose a ton of crab pots, period. I refuse to put an excluder in my pot. I won't do it because I know it would be a waste of time. I would lose catch. So in essence, I'm gonna put my pot in the middle of the river. It's going to get cut off. There's a greater possibility of catching turtles. That's all I have to say.
Any questions for the speaker? Thank you, Mr. Stanford. Appreciate you. Anyone else? The audience wish to speak on this topic at this time? All right. Deputy Commissioner Grist, I'm gonna try to get your title right the rest of the day. How about that?
I gotta keep you going today.
I won't make any promises for tomorrow.
So there is a rebuttal period, so if you want to go ahead and get the rebuttal in, 5 minutes?
The petitioner have ready for your rebuttal, please? Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name for the record, the microphone.
So my name is Rachel Matthews, and I am with the Center for Biological Diversity. I am a Virginian born and raised, and I spend as much time as I can at my family's place on a creek off the Rappahannock River right at the mouth of the bay. So I understand all of these folks here who are speaking today. I know that crabbing is a way of life, recreationally, and from a commercial perspective. And I also know that crab pots wash up on my parents' dock all the time. I've had to remove turtles from lost pots. So we're dealing with an actual problem. And I think, we're interested in compromise here. We want to protect our incredibly important native wildlife without harming the people who also rely on it. And so we're interested in talking about potential compromises to the regulation we've offered. And I realize there are procedural reasons that that might impact how the vote goes. But we do want the commission to consider seriously what are the compromises we can make to protect terrapins while protecting our fishers. I wanted to mention that the Endangered Species Act status of these diamondback terrapins, they're being considered for endangered species protections. And if they end up getting listed at the federal level, that could place some pretty substantial restrictions on what we can and can't do to harm those species. If we can get the bycatch numbers down by adopting regulations to reduce these terrapins from getting into crab pots, that might avoid or limit the consequences of an Endangered Species Act listing. In terms of cost and funding, we've seen various numbers, and I think that the center is very interested and is speaking with foundations that are interested in helping to defray those costs, because we understand that that is a very real concern, and our intention is not to make people's lives difficult by having to pay to add these devices to their crab pots. The fact is that the voluntary $10 fee reduction, as was mentioned earlier, is just not enough. It also has enforceability issues. In terms of the elements of our petition, so we've talked a lot about the 150 yard distance. And the thinking there was that that is where the terrapins are most likely to be, and the commercial crabbers are least likely to be. It sounds like if that is a concern, I think it would be reasonable to alter the ask of the petition to include recreational crabbers. That's a compromise that other states have chosen to go with, and we could potentially go with that, and we would support that. The other thing I wanted to mention was that, there are other states that are moving in this direction. The market is going to be moving in this direction, and as more and more states adopt these sorts of restrictions, the cost will go down. I think with that, I don't know if Dr. Chambers or Dr. Rosenfeld had anything they wanted to add. Otherwise, I'll wrap up with that.
Any questions for the speaker? Mr. Arson?
I have a question. Thank you. I have a question that was presented before in the previous petition discussion about the definition of habitat, and I think Vim's comments came up with this. How did you all come up with the definition of that habitat? It included man-made lagoons, tributaries, so on. Where'd you come up with that definition?
I don't actually have an answer for that. I didn't draft that part, but my guess is it's either derived from existing statute or regulations, or it's trying to be as all-encompassing as possible.
Follow-up?
Sure.
So encompassing that 150 yards, so it's hand in glove with, I guess, the 150 yards?
Yes, so the idea is that it's the restriction that we've proposed would be that BRDs would be required on crab pots that are within that 150 yards of, I believe, the low shoreline, low tide line.
Or meet that definition of habitat?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions for the speaker? Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, I do have one. It's not, this is just my opinion. As far as you ask for recommendations, I strongly want to encourage you as a board member here representing this commission in this setting, and as a waterman myself, a crab potter myself, the best recommendation I can give you as far as, and I want to protect the environment in every which way I can because I love living off of it myself, is to work with the watermen. And that might be challenging, but I think you're going to find success there. If that's an area that we want to target, you need to work with them, not the saying working in parallel, but it needs to be all in the same lane with them along the way. At least some side of consulting would go a long ways, I think, for your success. And 100% everybody, not just, we can't forget about the two potters. So. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you. Any more questions? Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Before I turn this back over to Joe for a second, I want to make just a statement of fact for the presenter. You mentioned earlier about making the panel and taking 30 seconds. I want to rewind you back about 30 years ago, 35 years ago. We sent a letter to all the watermen when we went to the coal rings and told them you can use Schedule 80 PVC pipe this size and you can cut it yourself. And it was much cheaper than actually buying the coal ring. Well, guess what? We made gauges for law enforcement, and when you put that gauge in that PVC pipe, it was a shade smaller. So we decided here, with that same mindset that you thought was a great idea, it takes 30 seconds, to go ahead and make them ourselves and allow them to make the watermen themselves here, and every single one of them got tickets. So, food for thought. So now you go ask a waterman, does he make coal rings? He's gonna tell you, I go buy them at Supply. They don't make them anymore because they're not gonna take a chance of getting a ticket. So, we went through that here before, and that was a disaster. We don't recommend them making any kind of thing like that because we have to gauge it in law enforcement. When you make a size, you enforce a size, or the size is not important, okay? Thank you. I'm not sure why you're raising your hand. We're pretty much over with here with this topic. You have an idea? Well, after this is over with, I'll bring you up for public comment. How about that? Okay. Please proceed.
We will have our our standard public comment period later in the day.
Yeah, we'll have that later. That's what we'll bring up.
I'll go back through the request and just the guidance for the commission before y'all take this up. Again, the request is that VMRC adopts or amends regulations to require the BRDs on licensed commercial and recreational blue crab pots in the waters less than 150 yards from shore at mean low water, but also including man-made lagoons, creeks, coves, rivers, tributaries, shallow bays, inlets, and nearshore harbors. To provide the fishery reasonable time to retrofit the crab pots, they suggest 3-year grace period. To allow the use of other gear modifications that demonstrate through peer-reviewed studies similar efficiency from what has been suggested for the BRD. They have provided regulatory language suggestions, a definition for the bycatch reduction device. I'm not going to reread that for you. And again, beginning with the 3-year from date of amendment, that all traps, whether commercial or recreational in state waters less than 150 yards. So the same repeat. The process, to be clear, so the commission has to issue a written decision. We have to post that on town hall. The decision is to grant or deny the petitioner's submitted request, the one that we took to public comment in March, the one the public did get to read, not anything, it's an alternative to that, because that means the public didn't get to address those items. So in its entirety, the written decision is published. If you grant it, the written decision will be published in the Virginia Register, and then rulemaking starts. So obviously, this is not a rulemaking session. This is just dealing with the petition. Rulemaking means we would then go to the advisory committee. We'd come back to you with recommendations. We would then, based on that request for public hearing, we have to go to Office of Attorney General for approval, the Office of Regulatory Management for approval, and then come back for a public hearing on a final action with the commission. If you deny it, same thing, written decision goes to the register. We're done. It's not appealable. But if you deny it, you still have the ability as the commission to request the staff does something different, separate, or a piece of. That is not taken away from the commission, but we just can't tear the petition apart. Petition is one item, has to be dealt with in whole. With that, and there are no additional slides, it's up to you, Commissioner.
Any questions for Deputy Commissioner Griffith? All right, everybody's quiet now. I guess I'll say my famous last words. Matters before the commission.
Mr. Commissioner, I'd like to make a motion to deny the request in its entirety.
Got a motion to deny the petitioner's request in its entirety from Associate Member Preston. I got a properly made motion, properly seconded by Commissioner Headley. Any further discussion?
You know, I would agree with this. Had this been more on the recreational crabbers, I think that all the numbers I've started seeing, that may be where the culpability lies, and I can support his motion.
Mr. Erskine?
Thank you, sir. And I know there's a motion on the table. Speaking to that, I just want to thank all the public comments that we hear for and against in the presentation. I think, there may be an issue here, and I agree with the recreational side of this. If the petition were specifically geared towards that, that may be a little bit more palatable. We're going to have a public hearing here today on crab management measures and the decline in the winter dredge survey. And, there are a number of issues in the crab industry itself on the commercial side, and I think it's very difficult to think there's going to be further restrictions on this industry commercially. I would support restrictions maybe recreationally if we were to see that in a petition, but I cannot support this petition as written. Thank you.
Any more comment, Mr. Headley?
We do have the motion and everything has been made for this specific petition, but we do have the power to ask staff to look into the recreational side of it further, don't we?
After we vote on this one, I was gonna bring that to the commission's attention to see if they want to do anything further.
Okay.
We have a properly made motion to deny the petition, Mr. Preston. Been properly seconded by Mr. Headley. With no further discussion, I'm bringing it forward vote. All those in favor to deny the petition, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Now, commissioners, is there anything else you would like to address or discuss now that the petition is denied about this subject matter to carry before commission?
I would agree that we should ask staff to look into the recreational side of this more thoroughly.
Yeah, can we do everything in all forms of a motion so I can get a vote, so we can officially, so you want to make a motion for?
Make a motion that staff, the MRC staff, revisits the recreational crab of both the 2 and the 5 pounders, both.
Okay.
To see what the numbers look like for them to put the rings in.
So I'm gonna try to state this right. I got a motion made by Commissioner White to review all recreational crab pot fisheries in regards to the turtle excluder device. Yes. And is that okay, worded? To review it, okay?
Second.
I got a second from Mr. Hand. Any further discussion? So the properly made motion is to review, to send back to staff for further review on all recreational crab potting fisheries, all the pot numbers for the turtle excluder devices, and have it properly seconded by Mr. Hand. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0 for review. So staff, there you go. You got some work on it. I want to say thank you to the petitioners. You guys did a great job putting this stuff together. Thank you for coming out. And I'll say thank you for everybody that spoke for and or against. It's a very important topic, and we'll make sure that we get in touch with you guys as this goes through staff process so y'all can participate where you would like to be. Thank you.
Commissioner Green, can we remove our jackets? It's a little warm in here.
Well, I don't know that I have the authority to regulate your garments, so help yourself. But yes. That's probably just as high as commercial.
Ready for the next?
All right, so the next one up is Todd Janeski on CVAL.
Who's here for CVAL?
Yep, come on. You're up.
It's not me. It's gonna be Brown Greer.
Oh, okay, come on. Sorry. I got your name here because I just remember you. Please come forward, ma'am. I'm sorry I missed you. Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
My name is Sydney Gustafson.
So everything's up on ready to go. Just click through here when you want to advance your slide. Let's have you need.
Again, my name is Sydney Gustafson. I'm with Brown Greer. We're a law firm in Richmond, Virginia, and we are experts in developing, designing, and implementing mass claims programs and specialized claims programs. I'm here to give an update on the Coastal Virginia Offshore Wind Fisheries Compensatory Mitigation Fund. It's a lot of words. We'll get through what it all is in a second. So thank you for having me, and it's going to be a 10-minute presentation, but we will have room for questions within those 10 minutes.
Could you speak into the mic,
Yeah,
please?
please, I can't hear you.
Sure. So this compensation fund is part of BOEM's guidance for what happens when you develop an offshore wind program. And this offshore wind program is Dominion Energy, their Coastal Virginia Offshore Wind Project, and in consultation with VMRC, they selected a neutral third-party administrator to design, develop, and implement the fund. That third-party administrator is Brown Greer. This program is guided by the CVAL Construction and Operations Plan, or the COP, the Record of Decision, and the BOEM Fisheries Mitigation Guidance. Again, the purpose of the program is the compensatory aspect of BOEM's guidance. It's to compensate commercial fishing businesses, for hire recreational fishing businesses, shoreside businesses, and there's a separate fund for commercial surf clam fishing businesses and shoreside businesses. While the program is guided by BOEM guidance, the COP, and the Record of Decision, there are certain design and development considerations that we would like the community's feedback on. And these are the big 6 items that we kind of broke up the feedback cycle into. The first is claimant eligibility. Who can file a claim? Documentation of eligibility. What should that claimant submit when they're trying to present a claim for compensation? Loss eligibility. What types of loss are we looking to compensate? What documents are available to support that claim for loss? The valuation of claims. How do we determine the amount of compensation? And the administrative processes. How do we get someone from point A, filing a claim, to point B, a final decision? This is a very quick startup. In May, we had our first presentation to the Recreational Fishing Advisory Board, just introducing the project. On June 18th, we had an initial pre-launch webinar open to the public. Today, we're here presenting to the VMRC. On Friday evening, we will launch the website and the program, as well as open up the system to allow preliminary intake of information. From June 27th through August 28th, we'll have additional engagement and more opportunity for feedback on the processes. And in September, we will finalize the claim form and the claims process. Now, with the June 27th launch and with the initial intake of information, we're trying to collect information from those claimants, and that information we hope will be sufficient to file a claim, but we want to hear from the community throughout the process so that we can refine according to the community's needs. December 31st is the first deadline under the protocol that will be available on June 27th. And that will be for economic losses incurred between October 30th, 2023 and December 31st, 2023. More information, again, will be available on June 27th. However, the website is already active. There's a QR code here where you can scan it, go to the website, read the full BOEM guidelines, read the COP, read the Record of Decision. Again, the protocol that guides how we will do things, a draft of it, will be available on June 27th. And if you would like to read through it and provide feedback, you can email us. We'll have a mechanism on the website where you can provide feedback directly to us. Again, we're Brown Greer in Richmond. We're very easy to find. You can reach out to any one of us, and we'll provide the information you need. Again, quick presentation, just an update on where we are. Welcome any questions that you have.
Thank you so much. Question, Mr. Erskine?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. The last slide you had showed a window of losses claimed for only 2 months.
So that was the Record of Decision date. It's an annual loss period, but because that date fell in October, it's just a shortened period for that year. Claims need to be filed within 2 years of the claimed loss. So if you have a loss in 2026, you have to file by 2028.
questions? Thank you so much. I would say, Deputy Commissioner Grist, if you could get this information on a link on our website so the public can have access to it, that would be great. So, but thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, Chief Owen, floor is yours.
Commissioner, I'm gonna throw a slow-hanging curveball, see if you swing at it. I've got three items back to back to back, all protested roofs, and I'm not only asking for today, I'm asking for all future meetings. But before I go to my PowerPoint presentation, as you know, we have a lot of protested roofs, and in many cases, people don't appear to speak. I would like to forego the PowerPoint and only go to it if there are people in opposition. So if I could, we would treat it as if it was a page 2 item if no one's here. All three carry staff recommendation for approval. Kelsey's wincing.
I think as long as the commission votes on it,
Sure.
we should be okay in skipping the long presentation if there's not, or short, or any presentation.
Sure.
We do have the opposition statements in our packets, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we already know what the opposition is. So basically, we'll try to operate this on a motion now. So Chief Owen has asked us, so there's gazebos are the next three items. That's what they are. I'm just going to speak layman's terms here. They're gazebos that wouldn't be on this agenda, would have been statutory authorized. It wouldn't be where they are. They're only where they are because somebody opposed them. Well, if there's no opposition here to speak on it, but somebody opposed them, do we go to a full-blown presentation, take all that time out when it would have been statutorily authorized anyways?
I agree with the approach.
So agreed with the statutory authorized, Mr. Erskine?
I have a question of the chief.
Yes, please.
Chief Owen, I have a question. So we're assuming here that there was opposition submitted, and they would not actually appear. What if the opposition had contacted you previously to the commission meeting and said, I cannot appear? So how would we deal with that? They wish to be here, but they actually had a conflict with the date, of the commission meeting, and how do we deal with something like that?
Well, my presentations are brief, and I'd say to err on the side of caution, I would just brief the commission. And we may have speakers here today. We may not, but I can tell you in 37 years, I've sat through many, many, many protested roof cases where at least 50% or larger of those cases, we have a box checked, I object. They don't come. They may write a letter, they may not. But my point is, it would be no different than the page 2 hearings in the sense that I'm presenting the case to you. You open the floor for public comment. If they're not here, we would just dispense with about a 10-minute staff presentation, knowing that we vetted it with staff and that we've reviewed it with the statute and the guidelines. And it still needs a permit because it's protested. So we would be making a permit decision. I'm just trying to remove as many staff presentations that are unnecessary if no one's here to oppose the project. And I know that there are some people here today, but there's some that are not here. And I'm speaking well past June. I'm speaking at least for the next 1 or 2 years. That gives you an idea how long I might want to stick around.
And as a follow-up, sir, I agree with the proposed expedited, review.
Mhm.
I guess I just wanted to see if somebody had a conflict and things like
Sure,
that.
and I would-
A lot of the time, we have, testimony that is actually outside the jurisdiction of this commission, be it a view shed they oppose and things like
Right.
that, we can do very little with, but
Absolutely.
I agree with the expedited review. Thank you.
We're seeking a motion for expedited review for protested statutory authorized project.
I would say boathouses and gazebos only.
So moved.
So moved. So got a motion from got a second from Mr. Headley. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Any abstention? Motion carries. We're missing one. Mr. Hand, let the record reflect Mr. Hand stepped out. So we're 6-0. We're moving along.
The commission, what I would do is I would read, the item, step aside to see if there's anyone in the audience to speak pro or con. And in the voice of opposition, I would come back and brief before they spoke.
Proceed.
So item 7, Brett Noon is requesting authorization to construct an 11-foot by 11-foot open-sided gazebo on a statutorily authorized private pier on Mill Creek at 477 Rains Lane in Matthews County. The project is protested by an adjacent property owner.
Is the protestant here and wish to speak at this time? Is the protestant here? All right.
So, sir, our recommendation is for approval of the project as written in the agenda.
Matters before the commission.
Make a motion to accept staff recommendation for approval.
Motion for staff recommendation for approval from Commission Member Erskine. Do I have a second?
Second.
From Commission Member Edwards. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Any abstention? Motion carries 6-0. Let the record reflect Mr. Hand is still away from his seat. Proceed.
Yes, sir. Item 8, Ronald Collins is requesting authorization to construct a 14-foot by 18-foot open-sided gazebo on a statutorily authorized private pier on Winder Creek at 135 Starlet Lane in Matthews County. The project is protested by the adjacent property owner.
Is the protestant here, or any, please come forward, please.
What I was going to do, if you agree, sir, is go into the presentation and then have as normal.
All right, that's fine.
The applicant followed by the
Yep.
protestant.
Absolutely.
So I'll load up the PowerPoint, sir.
Thank you. This is item number 8, right? Mr. Collins.
Okay. So Ronald Collins is requesting authorization to construct a 14-foot by 18-foot open-sided gazebo on a statutorily authorized private pier on Winder Creek in Matthews County. It is protested. Project is located just southwest of Gwynns Island. As you can see, there are a number of boathouses on the creek, so there are already roof structures up and down this creek. The applicant is highlighted in the yellow. The protestants, Marion and Naomi Sutton, are arguing, they're the upstream adjacent property owner, they're arguing that that the gazebo will negatively affect their view and it will infringe on their riparian rights. I would point out that they too are applicants and have recently in April applied for and did receive statutory authorization for a gazebo, and their neighbor did not object, who is the current applicant. This is what they asked for, an 18 by 20-foot gazebo roof. This is what's before you, a slightly smaller 14 by 18-foot roof. I'm going to leave that slide up and move to my summary. Staff notes that the proposed pier by Mr. Collins meets the statutory authorization requirements defined in Section 28.2.1203A5 of the Code of Virginia, and believes it is properly cited so that it will not encroach into the Sutton's riparian area. As you know, you have no legal authority to specifically determine the limits of riparian areas. If the protestants consider the pier to encroach into their riparian area, they should file suit with the local circuit court to adjudicate the riparian boundaries for both riparian properties. Had this gazebo not been protested, it would have been statutorily authorized, as was the protestants, since the gazebo is under 400 square foot and is open-sided. In light of the protestants' recent request and approval for their own gazebo, we believe the open-sided design of the gazebo proposed by Mr. Collins only minimally adds to the visual obstruction to Mr. and Mrs. Sutton. Mr. Collins' request is considered to be a reasonable use of state-owned Subiaquis Bottom in conjunction with his statutorily authorized pier. Accordingly, after evaluating the merits of the project against the concerns expressed by those in opposition, and after considering the factors contained in Section 28.2.1205 of the Code of Virginia, we recommend approval of the project as proposed.
Thank you, Randy. I'm going to start off like I normally do. Is the applicant or a representative of the applicant present and wish to speak at this time? Please come up to the microphone. Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Sherry Ash.
Sherry Ash, what are you the?
I'm the agent.
Registered agent, okay. Proceed.
Since Mr. Owens has already outlined the details of the application, I'm not going to take up your time by repeating them. However, the Collins have asked me to add a few brief comments. Medical necessity. The proposed roof is being requested due to a medical need. Mrs. Collins has previously had skin cancer removed from her face and upper chest and is scheduled to undergo another round of topical chemotherapy this August. Since her diagnosis in 2020, she's been unable to comfortably use their existing uncovered pier during the daylight hours. The proposed 14 by 18 roof will provide essential shade and protection directly supporting her medical condition. Pier extension. The new pier will extend only 52 feet channelward of mean high water, which is no further than the current pier extends. Mike Johnson's report regarding this application includes photos taken from the APO Sutton's property looking towards the Collins existing pier. I'm not sure if those photos were part of your packet. I have them if you so desire to see them. Additionally, there's another aerial, but Mr. Owens has provided that for you. Good faith modifications. In show of good faith, the Collins have already made design modifications to address their neighbors' view concerns. They have reduced the pitch to a 312 to minimize the visual impact and plan to further lower the roof height over the pier. Only the roof's narrow profile, the peak, will be visible to the Suttons, not the broader side of the roof. A light-covered roofing material will also be used to help the structure blend more naturally with the surrounding horizon, and the pier has been shifted 10 feet away from the protesting neighbor's property. Unfortunately, it cannot be moved any further towards the mouth of Winder Creek due to a sandbar that is located along the channelward edge of their parcel. The Collins have a legitimate medical need for this roof and have made sincere effort to accommodate their neighbors' concerns through thoughtful design changes and relocation of the pier. We respectfully ask for your consideration and support in approving this application. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Mr. and Ms. Collins are also here and be glad to answer anything you have.
Thank you. Is there any questions from the commission? Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Is there anyone else here in the audience who wishes to speak at this time? Please come forward. Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, none of the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name in the microphone for the record.
Camille Fisher. I'm the daughter of Marion and Naomi Sutton. They're in their 90s. They have hard to hear, and so I'm kind of their representative for this. Appreciate y'all listening to our side, and we certainly are thankful for the Collins doing what they can with the pier, and we understand their situation. My husband also has skin issues and skin cancer that gets cut out, so we understand that. I don't know if you all have the picture that we sent with our objection letter.
If you want to submit any,
I've got a few.
but you're
here. I
going to
don't
lose
have-
them to us. You're not getting them back.
No, that's fine.
Thank you.
And it shows it here on this slide too, just where the house is. That's our view from the living room and onto our porch. And it's something we've enjoyed, and we feel like, you know, we look right at the their pier, at their bench. And we just think we would be remiss if we didn't say something that we felt was detrimental to our view and even to the value of our property. And as was mentioned, we are putting a roof, or we're thinking about it, we really haven't decided. But we're the last people on the creek. We're not interfering. When my parents bought the property, there was a roof, and an ice storm, hurricane, something destroyed the pier and the roof. So we're trying to restore it from its original. We're the last. We're not interfering with anybody's view. And I can tell you just from my parents, they're good neighbors, they're good people. If the roles were reversed, they would never consider doing anything that was detrimental to a neighbor. And that's just kind of how we feel. And we just felt like we needed to say something.
Thank you. Is there any questions for the speaker? Thank Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak on this item? You're going to have to come to the microphone, ma'am. Please take your time. Oh, take your time. Take your time.
He's doing pretty good. I don't walk that fast when I wake up.
I'm putting forth an effort.
Take your time. Ain't no
Take
rush.
up a lot of your time. I do appreciate.
Raise your right
you
hand.
listening.
Yeah.
Yes, I will.
Take your time. Take your time. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you
I
God?
certainly do.
Please state your name and for the record.
Naomi S. Sutton. And I've just mentioned, before I start, I went to work at Fort Monroe in 1954. I retired in 91. So I'm familiar with the post, but it's the first time back. Thank you all again for having me. We appreciate our home. It's the old Winder home, built in 1842. And we love to watch the wildlife from our front porch. On the far side, the other side of the creek, they have, do you have to stand there?
Oh, if I'm making you nervous.
Oh, you're done.
He just don't want you to fall. He was trying to catch you if you fall, see?
That's
Help-
right,
He
you're
help
right,
you.
'cause I'm pushing along there. But on the other side, the east side of our creek, the opposite side from where we live, there are boathouses all up there. They destroy any kind of view of wildlife line to Queens Creek. We could see the mouth of Queens Creek and the beach when we first moved and hear the work boats coming along. That was really, it's great to hear. And we've enjoyed it. We've been there 50 years this fall. But we've had covered boat houses and so forth, and it's sort of pulling in on us now. And we won't have too many feet to look at there. And it looks like that, let's see, our shoreline is, I think we're probably 600 to 700 feet from the mouth of the creek. And it's a little creek, it's just a tiny creek. But we do appreciate our life there. And we hate to see this gazebo coming right up. And the line for our property runs where you see the woods. And so their pier right now is hugging that line. You could almost this is a vacant lot here, which we had proposed to leave to our granddaughter. All right, the pier that they're saying you could go on there and approach it and step right off. So you can see from the wooded area, the line of the property is mid of that ravine. So it's right now, it was not right when the Collins mother put it there, I didn't think. This is the existing one. You put a gazebo and structure, we'll just be cornered right here at the end of the creek. So,
Madam, on
I'm not speaking very elegantly. I
You're
used
doing
to
just
when
fine.
I worked, but I don't do it now. But I appreciate your time and listening to me. And as I say, we certainly have enjoyed our years in Matthews County. It was the ideal place. And when the bridge tolls go off, I'm fearful that the people will spread out. Thank you for listening to me.
Any questions? Thank you. You know, I want to echo one thing from Chief Owen is that we are not the authority. You can make your way to see. We're not the authority on the riparian line. That would be a challenge to the circuit court.
Riparian line.
Where the line is, where that piers land, so. Ma'am, you got a good escort from First Sergeant Pitt. I don't get that good an escort from him when he's protecting me. Thank you, Gerald. I appreciate you. You did a very good job. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak on this matter at this time? Anyone else? Do you want to speak on it or not? You're not going to speak again, and you're not speaking for her, so that's not going to happen. That's not how that works. Sorry. No, not right now. We're still seeing comments. All right, we're gonna have to get this together a little better now. Come on. Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Elizabeth Collins. I would like to share this aerial view of Winder Creek. The Suttons have more than 760 feet of shoreline. And you can see, their shoreline is highlighted in blue. And you can see that they have many views from their shoreline that are unobstructed by our pier, our current pier, and the pier that will be the proposed pier. And I also have some other photos that I would like to submit that show, that were taken by the VMRC, that show our current pier from the Sutton's shoreline.
Make sure I get them back. No, let's get the multiple copies.
And the photos from the Sutton shoreline were taken on the right side of their property.
All right, is there any questions for the speaker? Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak at this time? Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please state your name for the record.
Okay. My name is Ron Collins. I'm the person that would like to put the proposed dock there, along with what is being referred to as a gazebo. I have a rather crude mock-up that I made.
Are you willing to lose that permanently?
I absolutely am.
All right,
Yes,
give it to First Sergeant Pitt, and then we'll put that in. No.
This could potentially make the wall of the hallway in this commission.
They just bombed Iran. We can't let anybody come up there.
But that's,
Okay.
if the bottom of that is placed in line,
Right.
the piling's placed in line with the rest. And what I've done is a little bit bigger. That'll have to be held flat or else it'll creep down in the water. When we first came there, I'd been coming there for years, since high school, before I went on active duty. And it's a very nice area. We don't propose to do anything. We were hoping that this wouldn't conflict with our neighbor's view. Apparently, they don't like what we're going to do. We've made several concessions that they do not like. I don't know how to satisfy them. My wife has had a history of skin cancer. I was on active duty in the Middle East, spent 3 years as a lifeguard. I have a few skin problems myself. I'm not raising that as an issue, just as an addendum to mention. We feel like we've been gobsmacked by this. There was never any issue with what they proposed to do. By scale, you can see that theirs is much larger in length and the size of their proposed gazebo. That's fine. I remember when their pier was not there. And I just accept that. I enjoy nice sunsets. I would not go and ask the people across the creek They removed their trees so I can see the sun set on the horizon. Everybody has an expectation of being able to see a vista looking around. There's not just 2 points on the compass. There are several. I don't think ours is obstructive. There are places that if I didn't want inhabitants on the creek, I guess I could move to the Nile, the Orinoco, the Amazon.
All right, let's wrap it up now. We're gonna try to stay in this
All
country,
right,
okay?
but
Let's wrap it up.
That's it, honestly.
Is there any questions for the speaker? Thank you, thank you. Because he's the applicant. Since he's the agent, go ahead and do it. Ma'am, as the agent, do you have anything new to add as rebuttal, or you got anything that I haven't heard yet?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. Appreciate you. That being said, anyone else in the audience? We good? Matters before the commission. Mr. Headley?
I understand the protestants' concerns and all, but under statute, if it wasn't protested, this would have been an application that would have got approved by staff. So I'm gonna make a motion to accept staff recommendation and approve the project.
And a motion from Commissioner Headley to accept staff recommendations for approval of this project. Any further discussion? Do I have a second?
A second.
I have a second from Ms. Edwards. Got a properly made motion from Commissioner Headley. It's been properly seconded by Commissioner Edwards for accepting staff recommendation for approval of this project. Any further discussion? That being said, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Project approved. All right, Mr. Owen, Chief Owens, floor is yours.
Item 9, Harold Family Living Trust is requesting authorization to construct an 18 by 16-foot gazebo and a 37-foot by 15-foot open-sided boathouse on a statutorily authorized pier on the York River, 5232 Ivy Lane in James City County. The project is protested by 2 adjacent property owners. I'll stand aside, sir.
Is any of the protestants here wish to speak? Okay, proceed with presentation.
Well, 1 for 3, that's not bad in the majors. So,
That was that curveball.
That curveball, how's that curveball you
Yeah.
threw at me?
Okay. The Harold Family Living Trust is requesting authorization to construct an 18-foot by 16-foot gazebo, a 37-foot by 15-foot open-sided boathouse onto a statutorily authorized pier on York River in James City County. Project is protested by both adjacent property owners. Project is located on the York River, just upstream from York River State Park. The site is a large, vacant, wooded parcel consisting of a steep cliff that leads to a sandy shoreline along the river. If I'm not mistaken, I might have presented this in 2019 when it was protested then, and the permit expired. We're back in front of you again. So you have site visits from 2020 as well as application was 2019. It was heard in July of 2020. It was approved by the commission then. That permit expired. So I have site visits on the slide that are from recent this year as well as from a couple of years past. It is protested by both the up and downstream property owners. They're arguing that the Harold family has no plans to construct a home on this or live on this property, and that for security and privacy concerns, that it's an attractive nuisance. This is a complicated slide, but not. You've got your cross-section of the pier and gazebo looking at you. The gazebo is the yellow roof coming at you. Importantly, this pier does encroach onto the lease of KCB Holdings. We did notify them in February. We have not heard from them. They have not had any record of harvest since they got this by transfer in 2017. So, in essence, I'm ready to go to my summary. You have the plan view, which is, here you see the pier reaching offshore to the boathouse and gazebo. There'll be a set of stairs come down that steep bank. In summary, Section 28.2, 1203A5 of the Code of Virginia provides statutory authorization for private piers meeting certain design criteria. This section also authorizes the construction of open-sided boathouses measuring 700 square feet or less and gazebos measuring 400 square feet or less at private piers, provided they are not objected to by the adjacent property owners and are allowed by local ordinances. In this instance, since both adjacent property owners are protesting the boathouse and gazebo, a VMRC subacres permit is required. Staff understands the concerns of protestants. However, their concerns regarding whether the applicant has a residential structure or lives at the property are upland local issues for the county. Furthermore, there are several private piers with boathouses and gazebos directly upriver from the applicant's property. Ultimately, staff feels that the request to include the boathouse and gazebo as part of the private pier construction is a reasonable and consistent use of state-owned submerged lands. Accordingly, after evaluating the merits of the project and against the concerns expressed by those in opposition, and after considering all the factors in Section 28.2, 1205 of the Code of Virginia, we are recommending approval of the boathouse and gazebo as proposed. The pier is authorized by statute.
Thank you. Any questions for Chief Owen? Thank you. Is the applicant or representative of the applicant present and wish to speak at this time, please? Please come forward. Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please
Greg
state your name
Henrich.
for the record.
Greg Henrich, I'm the agent for the applicant. The presentation was great. I'll answer any or address any questions you may have for us.
Any questions? No, I think we're good.
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak on this matter at this time? I think we have some in opposition. Please come forward one at a time, please. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name for the record.
Dr. Jack Mrazek.
Proceed.
This is turning out to be a 2 water bottle day instead of a 1 water bottle day.
Amen.
I was going to wear a jacket and tie, but I'm glad I didn't based upon the temperature.
Smart man.
This project in its many forms has been around for probably over 10 years, and I do appreciate all your time and effort that you put into this. If you can see right up there, my house, it is literally looking straight out at the dock. The perpendicular from my back deck looks straight out. There actually is a duck blind, which Mr. Harold had allowed an employee of his to build, and literally I'm looking straight at it. As a matter of fact, during the wintertime, there's no foliage cover at all. You can look right out at it. And if this proposed structure is anywhere near where the duck blind is, it's in my line of sight. That said, it's been stated that the Harold family has no plans to build a house. And if our properties were in York County, this would not even be discussed because it's not allowed. But because it's James City County, we have the possibility of this happening. You know, we've been there for 25 years. Bought the properties somewhere back in 96, built a house in 99. And it's been quiet and peaceful and lovely, and that's why we bought it there. Lots of wildlife, and my wife is a real tree hugger. We have bird feeders everywhere, and we have all manner of critters around. The nature of the river has changed over the years. After the duck blind went in, there were people being actually ferried from the duck blind to basically shoot ducks for a fee. And it was like World War III at 6 o'clock in the morning. Now, we complained about that and that stopped. But this gazebo and boathouse is not a small undertaking. This is huge. I mean, I don't know how much money the Harold family has. We're talking $500,000 to $1 million project. And the big question is, who's going to watch it? Who's going to take care of it? A project like this on the river gives access to the local properties, compromising privacy, compromising security. You know, it's kind of like, and it, you know, the big concern now, according to the board, is, well, is it in your line of sight? And the answer is yes. It's analogous to living in a small subdivision and having somebody buy and place a large RV in front of your house, unlocked. You know, you couldn't get away with that in a small neighborhood. Where we are, we don't have a whole lot of rights except to object to the fact that a huge structure is going to go up in our line of sight, and nobody's going to be watching it, nobody's going to be taking care of it. And incidentally, the access road to the property is mine. It doesn't belong to the Heralds, it belongs to me. And I'm sure there's going to be a ton of traffic going up and down this road during the construction process. Even though the major part of the construction, I understand, is from the water, there's still going to be trucks on that property up and down. And if this goes through, I would like the board to consider the idea of making it required that something is in writing that will require the Harold family to maintain the road. In other words, any degradation that takes place as a result of this.
We have no, you're getting out of line here. You're running out of time as well. We're going to wrap it up. We have no jurisdiction on that. That's, that you have to deal with the county on that.
All right. I think that's pretty much it. This is in my line of sight, and I don't like the idea of it being there. If it were just a dock, like my neighbor further north, not a problem. But this is a huge construction, and I don't look forward to it being in my line of sight. Thank you.
Any questions for the speaker? Thank you. Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak on this item? You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
My name is Elsie Woodward, and I live on the other side of the property. And my protest to this thing is the fact that they do not live there. I don't care what they did if they lived there, but we moved in 2007, built the house, owned the property since '96. And I won't be able to see this. However, I have horses. The Carrolls allowed their employee to come over, and he still shoots deer with bow and arrow. And I'm sitting there having breakfast one day, and here goes a deer with an arrow sticking out of its back. He could have called and said, hey, I need to come get the deer, but he didn't. I saw that poor deer 2 weeks later, still arrow in the back. He built this duck line and allowed them to have a commercial enterprise. They were picking up people over at the park, at the boat launch or Crooked Landing, taking them over to the duck line, and as soon as they got their 10 limit, they do it again. And one Sunday morning, I remember 6 o'clock in the morning. If the Heralds had lived there, that wouldn't have happened. At any rate, after that first protest that he mentioned in 2018, Mr. Harold said, oh, we're going to tear it down. It's still out there. They don't care what's going on. They're going to create an attractive nuisance that nobody's going to watch, and we're going to be the ones that have to deal with it. So that's my mode of protest. They've never helped. They've never helped if there's been a hurricane or a storm. They've never helped to clean up the road or anything to access to their property. So,
thank you, ma'am. Is there any questions? Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak on this matter? Anyone? I will add, I understand a lot of the points of view, but there's a lot of statements being made. I'm giving you your time because you have a right to speak, but the overwhelming majority of what you speak of is without or outside of VMRC's jurisdiction, the duck hunting and all this, we don't have any, we're here about where the pier is placed, and that is it. We have no other jurisdiction. So, that being said, do you need any time for rebuttal, sir, the agent? No. All right, matters before the commission. Commission operates off emotions. Mr. Erskine.
Thanks, sir. I want to thank the protestants and the applicant for their time and comment, but I would note, as the commissioner said, that some of the protests that we hear here are outside of our jurisdiction, and for that reason, I would make a motion to accept staff recommendation.
Got a motion from Commissioner Erskine to accept staff recommendation for approval. I have a second from Commissioner Kellum. Any further comment? All right, properly made motion to accept staff recommendation for approval of this project from Commissioner Erskine. It was properly seconded by Commissioner Kellum. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you all for your time. Thank you for everyone. Thank you to everyone. All right. Item 10 was changed and stricken off the agenda during the beginning, so now we're at public comment. Give me a water one. Cold one? Yeah, I want cold, of course. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak at this time during public comment? So, we'll get the sir in the back, in the blue shirt. Yes, this is the time for you to come forward, please. Remember, each of you have 3 minutes to speak. Please, thank you. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please state your name for the record.
My name is Andrew Kevin Stith, citizen, Hampton, Virginia. Also a disabled vet, and also born and raised here. I'm here for commission, from the commission. I know I probably am, but it's been laid on my heart that when I was small, my grandmother and my family worked in the seafood industry. Also, closest I got to a crab was I'm a crabber. That's crabber at Hampton High School. Graduated from there. I've been proposing. I want to propose and I got an idea, and also for a memorial for all the fishermen, watermen, everything, and tell the story that I want to do a fisherman seafood, waterman seafood museum to tell the story, and also have a story for the next generation, and also tell the generations and anybody else, what do y'all really do? What do y'all really do instead of a picture? That's always been laid on my heart, and also from the industry and all from the seafood industry, and also to what's going on in the future. That's been laid on my heart. So when I say I just needed some help, need some help to develop. I got the plans, just need some help to develop it and everything, because I have this idea. The closest seafood museum or fisher museum is Reedsville, Virginia, and basically they don't have much of nothing. But here in this area, this is where everything started. The seafood industry started. And we have movies about it, and also from the colonial area, and also from all the areas. And also being a scientist, being an oceanographer, being a scientist when I was growing up. I've always been interested, and also and restoring Jamestown Island, and Tangier Island. So that's what I really want. That's what I really wanted to bring to the commission. And I wanted some ideas. I needed some people to help me out, need some direction to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Not a question, but first off, thank you for your service. And thank you for looking out for that industry as far as the waterman's industry. If you want a little bit of help, you have the president of the Virginia Watermen's Association right in the room today. He might be able to assist you in going forward and to helping you get a little bit further into that. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your service.
And thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak? Please come on, Corey. No, you gotta give it to the sergeant.
It's not, I want to ask.
You got it right here. Barty, we gotta treat everybody the same, right there. I don't know.
I'd like to speak on, I got a very important
You got,
document, 215.
okay.
Public comment now.
Yeah, you public comment, yeah. The quicker we get through this, is the quicker I might get free for 5 seconds.
Yes, sir.
Maybe. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Emery Rice. Guys, this is a little out of turn. It's on the shelf. It's saying I won't be here for the crab regulations this afternoon. I got a doctor's appointment. Apologize. Just a couple of things that y'all are going to see a good presentation from Pat, and just want to give you a couple of things from CMAQ that we did. We voted unanimous to extend our season from December 16th to December 20th this year. The main reason on that, the 16th is a Tuesday, the 20th is a Saturday. As watermen, we have to get our bait on Friday afternoon for Saturday. That time of year, we're all working in the main stem of the bay. Weather can change a lot rather quickly. So we're working on Saturday to bait our pots, going to take them up Monday and Tuesday. We get weather forecast changes over the weekend. We may not be able to do that safely. So we were asking for the end of the week. Staff last year supported an extension to December 31st because it's minimal effort, but the guys of us that are still working, trying to get maybe one last hit before Christmas, it's minimal effort. And I know you guys have you've gotten your info and all, and that our crab population is down according to the winter survey. Ron Lipschitz told us at the meeting from VIMS that, you know, everything's between our targets and our thresholds. Our numbers are good. We were below our exploitation rates for male and females. Everything is fine for, as we say, status quo. There's one other thing I did not write down. I guess that's it for now. But I appreciate y'all taking my comments early.
Thank you. Appreciate you. I would ask for any questions, but we have this on the agenda. So this is coming later. Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else wish to speak during public comment about an item that is not on the agenda? I gotta add the adjectives in there. Corey, you got me. You've already been sworn in, so you can come forward and state your name for the record, please.
I just, excuse me, I want to just say
State your
thank
name.
you.
State your name for the record.
Sherry Ash. I just wanted to say thank you for accepting the low ball from Mr. Owens. I think it's a great idea. I worked for Matthews County. I was staff for the Wetlands Board for 20 years, and I know what it's like to be on your side of the table. I think it'll be beneficial to all of you. I, as an agent now, will still have to prepare and come before you for this low ball that he has offered, in case the opposition shows up. So my suggestion is that you take it a step further and consider it something that's statutorily authorized.
I can't.
Can't do that.
But appreciate your thanks.
According to the statute, once it is protested, it is no longer statutorily authorized, which means the commission has to vote on the permit.
So how has that changed?
What has changed?
No, I mean, how do you go about changing that?
The code
is
section.
Code section. You need to change the code.
Okay.
You just add more work to us before you get over here today, ain't you? Appreciate that.
Thank
We'll
you.
just change 2 or 3 codes while we're at it. Yeah. Appreciate you. Thank you for the thanks. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak during public comment? I don't know if lunch is here yet or not. I'm guessing it is. Does everybody want to power through, or do they want to stop for lunch?
Power through.
Power through. Sorry, Corey, they're powering through, bud. So, all right, that being said, Adam, you're up and running. was getting ready to start a timer on you, Adam. She turned the green light on for me, too. I was getting ready to start it for you, too. I'm getting a little gunshot, a little quick to draw that little timer.
No, it's become a habit.
We gotta get some background music in here. It's getting a little quiet. Dr. Lukenbach's over there by himself. Gotta get him in the game.
This is a public hearing for an oyster on-bottom planting ground application number 2021-016 that was received from Mr. Mark Johnson. He is requesting authorization to lease approximately 250 acres of bottom planting ground in the Chesapeake Bay in the city of Norfolk. This is a proximity map. You can see this is down off the city of Norfolk, right near Willoughby Beach. We received this application June 22nd of 2021 for about 250 acres. It was advertised in accordance with the Code of Virginia. This does include letters to adjacent property owners, adjacent lease owners, a 2-week advertisement in a paper. It now also includes advertisement on a town hall website. These applications are also posted on our VMRC website and are also available via an email server if you sign up for that as well. The division did receive public comments on this. They received comments from the City of Norfolk, from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, as well as private citizens. The City of Norfolk and U.S. Army Corps of Engineers protest the application, citing significant concerns that the proposed lease would interfere with critical public resilience and infrastructure projects. Specifically, the city argued that the lease would obstruct an area of ongoing and future beach nourishment efforts that are essential to protect the nearby property, coastal hazards, and sea level rise, as well as potential stormwater outfall improvements. So these are components of the city's long-term strategy to safeguard the public welfare, and these were started in a 1986 federal Willoughby Spit and Vicinity Beach Renourishment Project. The application that you see, just to give you an idea, it's about 430 feet off the shore, about 430 feet from the pier. There is no submerged aquatic vegetation in the area. There are no current or historical leases. That one yellow one you see just south of the pier there, that is a bathing ground from the City of Norfolk that they lease for public access and swimming, so there are no commercial oyster grounds in this area. The inshore side of this is about 11 feet, and the offshore side goes to about 21 and a half feet. Just to highlight some of the concerns, this is an overlay figure submitted by the City of Norfolk that shows their beach nourishment project. You can see their sublines 2, 3, and 4 that provide nourishment to their fill sites 1 and 2 that go through this application 2021-016. This was originally part of the Water Resources Development Act of 1986 that allowed for shoreline protection of the Willoughby Spit nourishment and stabilization. There wasn't a lot of work done in this area due to prioritization of other projects. In 2014, they did a reevaluation report, and it was seen that this was still economically feasible for this area. In 2017 was the initial renourishment project, and then in 2022, the Virginia Port Authority deepened Norfolk Harbor and used this area as well. I believe in the next cycle that will be 2026 for more beach nourishment. The applicant is available here to speak on behalf of his application, as well as there are representatives here from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, as well as the City of Norfolk. They can speak on their beach nourishment projects a little bit better as they're more familiar with them. The Code of Virginia 28.2.1205 allows the commission to grant or deny any permit for the use of state-owned bottoms, taking into consideration the public and private benefit of the proposed project. Staff is requesting guidance from this commission to either approve or deny this application based on considerations of the objections raised by local residents and organizations, comments concerning support of the request, and consideration of the public trust doctrine. I'm happy to take any questions on the application.
Any questions from the commission? Mr. Armstrong.
You mentioned there are no historical leases, you know, and things like that. Has this been an area been applied for in the past, do you know?
I did not see any applications that were applied for in this area.
Okay, thank you.
So Norfolk has denied it.
Norfolk has sent in written comments protesting the approval of this application, as well as the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and one from a private citizen. They're all available in your packet.
The area shown, here it is on page 2, the red area shown, the 250 acres. Is that in any way in the way of the dredging that the Corps of Engineers is going to do in the main channel that goes?
The graphic you see on the screen in front of you, that is taken out of the City of Norfolk's objection, where they show their project lines. You can see, and they'll be able to speak to this better, subline 2, 3, and 4, as well as fill site 1 and 2 would be obstructed by this application in some way, shape, or form. Those fill lines, from my understanding, have a little bit of variability depending on the contractor and what makes the project most efficient. So there does seem to be some kind of interference between the application and the federal project for beach nourishment.
So if we granted it and they planted 250 acres of oysters in that location, and then what happens when the Corps comes in and wants to put dredge material on top of it?
That's a good question. That would be that would be a question for statutory authority. Who has authority, either the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers federal project or the statutory rights of bottom planting grounds.
Do we know what the purpose, what the usage of this is intent for? It's going to be on bottom row?
It's going to be on bottom, but the Code of Virginia allows you to propagate shellfish to the fullest extent. So although they don't have the intent of putting bottom cages on there, it's a 10-year lease. Those things can change. Leases are transferable. A new applicant or individual could decide their business plan is a little bit different. So we have no way of putting a permit condition and/or regulating how they propagate the shellfish, but they do have the ability to propagate shellfish to the fullest extent.
But right now, we're being informed it's on bottom.
Correct. That is the intent.
So that area looks to be, according to the elevation, on the 8 to 20 feet deep?
Yes, the application on the inshore side is about 11 feet deep, and the offshore side is about 21 feet. So 250 acres, some variability, but it gives you some ranges.
I mean, is that normal for oyster bed planting to be 15 feet in the under the water?
It can be. It's a little bit deep. Some people prefer shallower water, but there are plenty of oyster leases that operate in that 10 to 15 foot range.
Okay.
No more questions? Thank you, Adam. Thank you. Is the applicant or a representative of the applicant here wish to speak at this time? Please come forward. Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
My name's Mark Johnson. Yeah, I applied for the oyster ground in 2021. There will be 200 feet from the shore. There will be no growing cages floating or on the bottom. I'll give up all rights to the oyster grounds whenever needed. There's no reason that the lease cannot coexist, and there will be zero impact on the beach property. And thank you for your time. And I got a
Gerald.
notary on that for you.
Any questions for the speaker? Mr. Erskine?
Sir, when you heard of this opposition and that this was going to be a public hearing, you know, for your application, and these proposed pump-out sites for the beach renourishment, why did you choose this area? Was there no other area that you wanted to apply for that might not have the conflict?
I didn't know nobody told me all these problems with the piece of property when I put in for it. I should have been notified, you know, about all this. I would never put in for it. But since I already put in $2,000 to do this, another $950 to survey it and go ahead and to do it. That's why I kept on going with it.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions?
The certification that you just gave us, that said you would remove or you give up all the rights to the bed whenever you needed.
Whenever they need it.
So let's just say that the Corps came in there and said, in 2 years, said they're gonna put that dredge material on top of your beds. What would you do with those oysters?
I just couldn't harvest them.
Pardon?
I just couldn't harvest the oysters at that time.
I know, but if they came in there and put 5 feet of bottom fill on top of your oysters, what are you gonna do?
I didn't know they put sand on top of the oysters. I thought they replenished the beach program, not out there that deep.
Well, the beach replenishment is, but it doesn't stop right at the water's edge. It goes on out some.
Right, but it seems like it's away from my grounds where they pump out. I just have to take that chance. I'm just taking a chance of getting it anyway. It's, it's just a chance I took.
Any more questions?
To try to get more oyster grams, because there's no other oyster grams to get in the bay. Everybody knows it's all been taken up.
And, Mr. Commissioner, this is more or less for maybe for the staff and the chief. If we would have to hear, that would have to be brought in front of the commission, Army Corps of Engineers, or anyone as far as approving that dump site, or any kind of pump out sites or.
They can't put sediment on state-owned bottom without a permit.
Right. But that plan would be then presented as much like in the past, that we have been presented with.
There's an argument, the Army Corps, that they think they're exempt, but that's not true.
Correct.
Go ahead, Mr. Evans.
Isn't there a dumping ground there in that vicinity anyway?
It's further
Above Little Creek, or is it further down?
It's
towards
further
Little
down
Creek?
from where this is at.
Craney Island.
No, what this is,
You're talking
this is outside of the river.
It's further down the shoreline, by good ways. Any more questions? Ms. Kellum?
Question for staff. If the area was reconfigured to fit in between the lines, would that help in any way, shape, or form?
I think that might be a better question for either Army Corps of Engineers or the City of Norfolk. My understanding is these proposed sites have variability on it depending on the contractor and where they're pumping. So these are not specific exact locations. These are approximate depending on the needs of the project in any given year. But they can probably speak to the transitional nature of those pump out sites better than I can.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. All right, that being said, is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak on this matter? Or whoever wants, come on forward, please. Yeah, please, sir. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
My name is Robert Pruse. I'm with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Norfolk District, Chief of Technical Support Section in our Operations Branch. So my comments pertain to the constructability of the Willoughby Spit and Vicinity Beach Nourishment Project. It's a congressionally authorized project executed by the Corps. City of Norfolk is the non-federal sponsor. So what you see here presented here are what would be typical pump-out locations, but they are not exclusive pump-out. So when the Corps comes to construct this, we would leave this area open for the contractor to determine where his best economical location to anchor the dredge, set up his pump-out buoy, to pump the sands to the beach area. So this entire area could be open to the dredge operation. They'll be mining the sand from a distant source via a hopper dredge. Dredge will come in to a certain depth that they can safely anchor. There'll be a pump-out buoy, and then they'll have multiple submerged lines that will be set up as they construct the project. It's the submerged line that runs to the beach that will cross the proposed lease area here. It's the Corps' position that would be a direct conflict with the federal project. We do also think, based on the Corps' authority, Corps has an authority under Rivers and Harbors Act, Section 10, Section 408, under Rivers and Harbors Act, Section 10, that this would require permission from the Corps of Engineers to alter or impair the federal project. So that's a position of the Corps, that this would be subject to that permission. As going through that process, if this were approved, one of the requirements we would have was that the applicant would have to sign a hold harmless agreement, that they would hold the government harmless, government's contractor harmless, to any damages to a lease site. However, that would be an outgrowth of the 408 review process. So we would have to do that evaluation to arrive at that position, whether we can give it permission or not. But this entire area, depending on the characteristic of the dredge, predominantly they're going to be anchoring anywhere from between 22 to 25 feet depth of water for a fully loaded hopper dredge. And then those submerged lines will be run by the contractor to the beach, and when they come to the beach, they'll be running a T-head on that, pumping the sand east, west, to do their fill template to the design grade. So from there, that's the constructability aspect of this. The Corps also, we have present Ms. Justine Woodward, who can speak to the specifics of the Willoughby project and the authorized project. Also Katie D'Amico, who's our 408 program coordinator. So my comments pertain to the constructability issues here. We do view it as a direct conflict to perform the congressionally authorized project. That's all I have, sir.
Any questions? Mr. Erskine?
Sir, I have a question about the, in this photo, about subline 4, the most northerly one. Is there any potential to move that further north, or is that the most far north that you would go with that line?
So that particular subline as just a typical depiction, that could vary. It's really going to depend on the characteristic of the dredge that comes to the project, what depths he needs to anchor in to do the pump out operation. He could choose any location. Obviously, they're going to try to get the shortest distance, the most efficient pumping. So the question is, could that particular dredge access further to the west to avoid that area? We don't prescribe that generally. We will show the relative contours out there so that the fleet of hopper dredges and the contractors who are bidding it, they're aware of what the site conditions are, and they know what the best economical dredge to accomplish the necessary work will be.
As a follow-up, sir?
Yes, sir.
I wasn't actually thinking about you all moving. I guess what I was thinking is the possibility to request the applicant would be willing to move their proposed application further to the west, I guess would be in that kind of area that's 15 to 18 feet deep.
Yes, sir.
The dredge, I understand, stays at around 25, you said, somewhere
Yes,
around
sir.
there. So that they may avoid subline 4 and 3.
So, sir, that could potentially remove the direct conflict from a subline, hadn't even be placed across that proposed lease. It still would be subject to the Corps' 408 review process and would still require permission under 408 from the district commander.
There's, and for the record on this, and I'll get Randy, there's a difference in opinion between VMRC and Army Corps on that. So we're going to have to get that straight. And Randy, when we get a chance, we'll work, because I hear you saying it, I hear Army Corps saying it at every meeting I go to now, and all of a sudden this 408's hitting me in the face, and I need to get clarity, because either we're going to stop saying it or you're going to stop saying it. Whatever one of us is wrong is going to have to stop saying it. So we're going to figure that out. So that being said, we got to get clarification to make sure we know who has jurisdiction there. So that being said, any more questions? The only question I have for you is, how often do you do beach nourishment here, and when was the last time that this operated here?
The project was originally constructed in 2017 by the Corps of Engineers. That was the initial construction. I'm not sure of the year of the authorization, sir. I believe the city did a smaller scale renourishment in areas that had critical erosion. I believe that was 21 or 22. Right now, the Corps has included in our budget submission to Congress showing a capability to perform this project if Congress chooses to fund it. So it is scheduled to be nourished. We're just waiting on appropriations.
This particular area right here, where that 250 acre thing is, because I know about the city's beach nourishment, I didn't know it was right there, where this is at. That's my question, when was the last time, right here, where this picture's been taken?
Sir, I don't have that information specifically.
It's just a long ways from there to where they do beach nourishment down there, just above Little Creek, and we see that all the time. That's a considerable distance.
So the whole project is about 7.3 miles of nourishment. So it does extend from Willoughby Spit.
What I'm saying is, if you've never done beach nourishment in this area, show me a map. This is potential beach nourishment. This is not a project that's been done yet.
I would say to that, sir, the whole beachfront is part of the authorized, congressionally
I
authorized
get that,
project.
but I'm talking about this is potential site, because if you haven't done it, then these buoy pump out sites haven't been utilized yet.
I can't speak to the specifics, whether there was any areas excluded in 2017 construction, but the whole area would be subject to maintenance.
I get that.
in the
I'm just saying, we might be talking about hypothetical. This is where we would do this if we came in this area. It's not, we've done this before, is what I'm saying.
I can't speak to that specifically.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure, because it would seem like we would have ran into this problem before. You know, when the project came, we were like, okay, we got to make sure we set this aside.
408 is a relatively new in its implementation. The statute's been around since 1899. However, the implementation guidance was not released to the Corps until 2014 as an unfunded mandate, and it's just been in the past several years where this has started to evolve and grab hold of, and us understanding its implications.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because that's one of the things we got to get clarity, because when we're hearing it now, it's kind of changing my mind. Says, wait a minute, I'm getting told this over here, I'm getting told that over there, and I don't play that game. I got to get clarity.
It's evolving on the Corps side too, and on understanding where we have conflict points throughout our mission.
Mr. Haney, you got a question?
I want to mention, I got friends that live there about 300 yards west of the pier, right at that area. And they've got one of the older cottages there on the beach. Pumped an enormous amount of sand in front of their house.
Yeah, I know downstream. I'd seen it downstream of
Yeah,
this.
so it's definitely happened.
Well, I know, but I was just worried about, I was wondering about this site, because it may have already been covered and useless anyways, is my point, is if you've already done it, it may be sand that deep, eroded over, back on top of it.
What they'll do, sir, is if we get the appropriations, they will do a survey of the whole beach, determine how much sand, how many cubic yards per linear foot's needed to accomplish the required template. So some areas may receive more, some areas may receive less.
Of course, thank you.
Yes, sir.
More questions? Mr. White?
So, is the nourishment project that you have before Congress, does this go from this point all the way to the mouth of Little Creek?
Sir, I'd probably have to defer to Justin.
I mean, looking at the
from the Corps
drawings,
to
it
speak
does.
specifically to that. I don't know the
the
exact
drawings,
limit
it
of
does
the
go that way.
congressional
So-
authorization. It's generally 7.3 miles in
It's
length.
close, that's about the distance. It's close. We can say it's close enough. for
Are there
comfort.
any other oyster beds
No.
from this one to the mouth of that Chesapeake Bay, to the mouth of the Little Creek Harbor
This is a worship.
within that 7 miles?
Not that the Corps is aware of, sir.
I was going, wait a minute, this is with leasable bottom. I don't think do we know this has got shells or oyster rock on it or anything like that, Adam? I mean, is it? That's what I'm saying. This might be just open bottom. And that was going to be my next question, is what's the viability to produce oysters here on bottom growth versus cages?
And sir, so from that aspect, I mean, I agree with your comment. The comment that was made that while the sand will be placed on the fill template, there is outwash
Well, yeah, it's
from the
gonna- it's
beach.
gonna
So
come
you
right
will
back
have-
out. That's why you gotta pump it on
You will
there.
have winnowing, you will have the finer grained sands that will likely migrate to that near shore area, could impact that bed.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, you wouldn't have to put it there if it didn't move.
Correct.
So, I mean, any more questions? Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak on this? Please, y'all can race to the podium, one at a time, though. Come on, Mr. Citizen. I'm assuming that's not your name, but do you swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name for the record in the microphone.
My name is William Ford Law, better known as Bill Law. Lived in the Tidewater area, not that that matters, but 80 years. My last 25 years has been on that beach. If you look at the diagram and see the very first dimple, that is rock jetties. All that has been added in the last 25 years just trying to save our beach. We've had 3 beach replenishments. Now, I'm not sure what the chart is showing, but I'm telling you, they have put sand, as well as today, if you'll go over there are bulldozers running our beach, trying to push sand between the 11th, 12th block because it's already breached people's property. Now, I don't know what that means. I know the Corps of Engineers are moving on a monthly basis, measuring sand movement. I also believe, and I'm not an oysterman, that oyster beds and open water like that is very subject and hard to contain to movement. That stuff is going to end up on the beaches as well. This beach is a highly dense density population there, and we have daily hundreds of people on the beach that are guests as well as residents, and they have no idea what an oyster shell will do to your feet or hands. And the distance between that and the beach, we're subject to a lot of that being on the beach, particularly with storms. Again, if you will, I know you can't go out there, but I'm telling you, their dozers moving today, trying to save a part of our beach. The next replenishment is either the 26th or 27th. So that's why we're moving sand from one place to another to try to protect those homeowners.
I've seen them working up and down there. I didn't see them quite
Anyway,
at that point.
we just unanimously, we're all in agreement that there's no places for that when that beach is being used daily for beaching, boating, paddle boarding. It goes on, and I'm on a paddle board there as well. And I mean, I don't care to fall off and have that under my feet. I don't know if it's justification for saying that, but we love the property and we're trying to protect it as much as possible.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. Appreciate you. Are you an attorney, ma'am?
Yes, sir, I am.
I don't, just state your name for the record.
My name is Margaret Kelly. I'm an assistant city attorney for the city of Norfolk.
Proceed.
The commission has heard both from U.S. Army Corps and from the citizen, who I think did a great job of explaining the public trust doctrine, essentially, the concern that we have here for these beaches. So I'll say a little bit from the city's perspective. First, this specific area was part of the 2022 Virginia Port Authority renourishment that is mentioned in the city's objection. This specific area is of the beach was part of it. So it is some place that we are actively trying to renourish. And that's the crux of the problem, which is the city can't rely on Congress giving us money. At this point in time, we can't even rely on FEMA giving us money if the worst happens. The city has to actively and is actively renourishing its own beaches as much as it can on the citizens' dollars. I will read a little bit from our 2024 evaluation survey of the beaches, which said that to get back to the 2017 full renourishment that the federal court had just did, as of November 2024, they've identified a current need of 603,000 cubic yards to restore back to that 2017. That's equivalent to an average annual need of approximately 80,400 cubic yards per year. And using that average annual need of 80,400 cubic yards per year, if the federal project were to be renourished in the summer of 2026, it is estimated approximately 723,600 cubic yards of material in place would be required. To accomplish this in-place volume, an even greater volume of material would need to be identified in the borough area to provide the volume in place on the beach to account for dredge losses, inefficiencies in dredging, etc. Some of the recent projects that the city has had is in East Beach in 2024, including cleanup, a 12,000 cubic yard beach renourishment cost us $630,000. In Toller Place, which we just completed this year, I think a month or so ago, a 12,000 cubic yard without the cleanup included $350,000 to the city, and there is a plan for First View and Ocean View Park, which is 15,000 cubic yards, which is estimated to be $700,000. These are city projects. We are huge supporters of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We love their help. We love congressional help. We can't rely on it. Sand is expensive. Beach-worthy sand is in limited supply. Contractors who do this work are expensive and in limited supply. When we need to move then and there. It is going to cost the city's going to have to buy equipment to clean up these shells that are going to come in at an exorbitant rate, given the extraordinarily large section. This is about 3/4 of a mile of the beach. The erosion usually happens, my understanding is from east to west, so this is all just gonna flow all over the beach area. We can't control where the sand goes. I can't control where a contractor is going to be able to lay lines in the future at the cheapest cost to the citizens. And the city is just asking not to have to tangle with this applicant every single time. We need to move quickly to get through this. I'm also asking that you don't put the city in a position to be sued if he's unhappy, if something happens with his oyster lease. It's my position we would be immune, but that's up to a court, and the city still has to take on the cost of that litigation. So for all of these reasons, we ask you don't put that burden on the citizens. This has been a public right-of-way since about 1902. It's right next to the Sarah Constant Park. It is not a place for this kind of activity to take place, and so we would ask that you deny this application.
Any questions? Nobody wants to argue with the lawyer.
I tried to talk fast.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Brevity is always appreciated, by me anyways. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak at this time on this matter? Any rebuttal from the applicant before I carry this before the commission? You want to come forward? Please, when you get to the microphone, state your name for the record.
My name's Mark Johnson. When we used to crab dredge out there with about 300 boats, we used to crab right on the shoreline, all on the beach. There's no complaints about any shells or anything coming up then. We had 2 7-foot dredges. Now I'm just using a little 4-footer out there. So it shouldn't change nothing. Nobody complained about that. And when they put the submerged pipes out there, we used to work around them also crab dredging. They were never marked properly, but we knew where they were. So, we didn't go over or disturb them. So I just think there's no reason that I shouldn't get it.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Johnson? Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Adam, you have anything to add before I carry this before?
I don't have anything to add. As a reminder, that staff is requesting guidance from the commission to either approve or deny this based on the testimony you've heard today, as well as the information provided you in your public comments in this packet.
Is there, I have a question for you. Is there any evidence that there's oysters currently there?
I don't have anything that shows that there's any evidence that there's oysters currently there.
I mean, obviously, if there were shells there, we'd like to work with the Army Corps to get the shells out before we cover it with dredge material. We've been doing that pretty good here lately. So, Mrs. Kell?
Is there any way in the future that we could, I guess, avoid an applicant from spending so much money
Absolutely. We do.
before he gets to this point?
We continue to increase our thorough reviews of applications. In this case, we do look for federal channels, and we look through joint permit applications and draft applications. This one back from 2021 was not caught. However, we do rely on information through the public comment period to elaborate on whether or not this application has merit. We did work with the applicant and to let him know that these projects and these protests were in place, so that he could decide whether or not he wanted to continue on and get the survey done or not. So we try and work with the applicant as much as we can, and our vetting of these applications has gotten heavier and heavier to try and avoid as many of these things as we can.
Yeah, after the vote, I was going to make a comment after we go. Any more questions? Mr. Erskine?
Maybe not so much a question, but a comment. And I'm not going to, certainly advise the applicant on how to grow oysters or clams or whatever it might be for shellfish that you're interested in. I would be concerned about some of the siltation and sanding that may occur in the area. But I'm wondering if there's any possibility of crediting, if the applicant is interested in possibly moving the lease or the application. This one would be denied, but crediting the cost that's been incurred by the applicant to a new area that may be away from these Army Corps sublines.
We're allowed to do that by code?
I guess I had a question on it.
282608 outlines the application fee, and 615 outlines the survey costs.
That is going to require me to review the statutes again. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure that we can, because it is, as he has said, in code. This isn't,
As well as the cost borne by another public review process in another areas, including newspapers, certified letters as well. So we have practiced that each application needs to operate differently because of that public review process and the fees outlined in code.
Yeah, we have a tough time with these fees when there's a mistake made for paying back. Code doesn't allow it. Any more questions? Thank you, Adam. All right. Famous last words of a fool. Matters before the commission.
Ready to make a motion?
Mr. Ham.
I could state many reasons why, but I'm just gonna make a motion that it be denied.
All right. Motion to deny oyster ground application or assignment, oyster ground assignment by Commissioner Hand. Plain enough? Good? Does that work?
Based on the fact that Norfolk has rejected it, and you've heard the Corps, and if we approve this, it's going to set in motion the federal government, the city of Norfolk, and the state of Virginia in a turmoil over this. Plus, I think we would, if we approve this, we would open the door for 7.3 miles of beach for oyster applications, which nobody's going to want. So I would second the motion.
Got a second. A motion to deny the oyster ground assignment, properly made by Commissioner Hand, properly seconded by Commissioner White. Any further discussion? All right. That being said, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I didn't hear you very well. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
All right, we're gonna do the hands, we're gonna do can, all right, can you raise your hand on the ayes? Please, all those, 1, 2. We got 2 ayes. All right, raise your hand on the nays. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let the record show the motion failed. The 2 ayes are Commissioner White and Commissioner Hand. The nays is the rest of the crowd. So Commissioner Heckellum, Commissioner Erskine, Commissioner Headley, Commissioner Edwards, and Commissioner Preston. All right, back to the drawing board. Matters before the commission.
Can I ask staff a question?
Proceed.
So, similar to previous agenda items like a petition, is this in the same form where it's simply approval as submitted or denial, or is there an opportunity to make a suggestion or recommendation?
The stance we've taken before is there is an opportunity to make this smaller, as long as it's in the same footprint. This footprint is what has been advertised to the public. So we can make suggestions to make it smaller within that same footprint, but if you are enlarging or moving that footprint, you are creating a new public advertised for the public. So yes, the public understands in this area up to 250 acres is what is proposed. If in the end you end up with 100 acres, in the past, that has been acceptable within the same footprint.
if I can add just one thing to that, all of that is accurate. The other thing I would say is the applicant has to agree to the change. If they don't agree to the change, then we can't force them to change their application.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Discussion.
Yes, sir, Mr.
I guess it stems off of what Mr. Erskine just said. If we do make it smaller and he approves what we had come up with. But they still could come through and put the lines right through the middle of it. So I don't see how it would benefit anybody other than if we did grant it, for them to work that out on their end. So I don't see a whole lot of winners here right this second.
No, I mean, I agree. If you think, I'm not advocating for one side or the other here, but making it smaller doesn't change where their pipes are gonna be mobile. They're gonna be moving as they work on that, up and down that beach. So
And
where
they're-
you moving to is just, if they start on the upper end, it's gonna take them longer to get there. If they start on the lower end, it's just take longer to get up.
And they're just proposed at this moment. They're not set in stone that that's where they would be.
And I would venture to say that there's no lat and long associated with this map.
No.
I'll just comment as to what Commissioner Headley said is, I agree, you know, we're maybe doing very little here, but trying to find a compromise. And as the Army Corps representative had suggested, we may be reducing the potential for the user conflict, not the 408 process, as I understand. So maybe to give the applicant something to be able to propagate shellfish, it may be a compromise. May not be willing to do that, but at least we would be reducing or attempting to reduce the user conflict.
Certainly.
Could I call the applicant back up?
Absolutely. Please come to the microphone and state your name for the record, as you have previously been sworn in.
My name is Mark Johnson.
Mr. Johnson, thank you. According to this, what we have in front of us that we're looking at with the proposed pump-out buoys, if we tried to approve, say, the east half of that block to give you 100 to 125 acres, would that be something that you could work with?
That'd be great.
And they could also work around?
That'd be great.
Okay.
Sir, so do you still understand that they would have to go through a process, I guess, to essentially this 408 section that may hold harmless any impacts to your oyster ground? You do?
Yes.
This would be the case regardless of what acreage he holds though, correct?
Right.
Whether it's 125 or 250
It's the
is
same.
requested.
The Army Corps' argument is still valid.
Essentially, the
same,
applicant's
regardless of
taking
the
a
size.
loss here, where no matter what the Army Corps decides they're gonna do, potentially based off of what this commission also agrees with too, potentially, but he's at the loss, everything's at risk for him, whether it's 250 acres or 5 acres out there.
Yeah.
Right? They could put a pump line, a pump out spot wherever deemed necessary to complete this job, which you'd have to be okay with it.
Yes, anything they would need to do on that property, I'm fine with.
I just don't know how reducing his, and we're talking about trying to make a compromise here. Well, the compromise, he's the one doing the compromise. And in my opinion, no matter if he has 250 acres or 5, he has to compromise and bend for what needs to be done to that beach. I don't see a shell issue at all. But I'm not familiar with the area, but I'm familiar with the grounds around my place, and I don't have a shell issue. Unless what you seed does not take, and that ends up on the shoreline. And of course, that's going to be very small. I just don't feel like you're the one accepting the risk, and everyone else has to. No more comment myself. Essentially, Mr. Commissioner, I'd like to make a motion to approve his request of the 250 acres based off of the compromise is he is accepting all the risk and associated with this request. And based on that, I make a motion to approve his request.
I'll second it.
I have a motion to approve the assignment of the oyster ground from Commissioner Preston, and I have a second for that approval from Commissioner Headley. Any further discussion?
So I just want to be clear with what my comment was before and the fact that we have a duty on this commission to try and balance public trust doctrine of all interested parties. And we have several parties here that oppose the application. We have somebody that's well within their right to apply for the oyster ground, be it any size, and incur that risk that may be there. But if, in my opinion, if we were to reduce it, we may be appeasing some of these proposed pump-out lines and not have that issue for the applicant. So that's our duty to be able to do that in public trust doctrine. That's all I was suggesting, so.
Understood.
When he comes in with an application for 250, can we put conditions on it? That's what Mr. Preston is suggesting, we put conditions on it,
I mean-
which I didn't think we were allowed to do.
No conditions.
We're not
Oh,
allowed
you
to
asked him to accept full responsibility, that's a condition.
Yeah,
Well, that's based upon his application itself.
I don't know that we can't assign, the only conditions that are on lease assignments, it's not like a permit condition when you're getting a permit, is if you put cages on bottom over 12 inches tall, you have to get a permit. That's the code, that's it. Everything else, once you get the assignment to you, there's really nothing that you're statutory authorized to approve to do that this board can stop you from doing.
That's correct. And then if I may, just to clarify, the condition is that he has accepted a risk, so if the Corps of Army Engineers went in and their sediment ruined his grounds, he can't hold them liable. And that's what the comment was, not me adding that to the mix. He was accepting that risk, that they wouldn't be held liable for that.
But that's changing the motion, changing his application.
His application's just for 250 acres right there. And there's no, this thing, I mean, I understand, we're getting caught up with this letter. This letter don't mean anything. This is not an agreement between anybody. I mean, he's gonna have to do that with two parties, not just, or three, or however many it beats, however many it is. So that hold harmless thing notarized is not worth the paper it's written on.
I still think it's still putting it on as a condition to the motion is improper. I think the
So-
motion has to be either you approve it as it's put in, or you don't.
That's what the motion is.
That's what we're
That's what
doing.
it is. He added with conditions.
No, that,
He rewords the motion, just to approve it as is, then that's something we should consider.
That's what I understood it was. Mr. Erskine was the one that was talking about, hey, can we make a compromise? Am I good, Mr. Erskine?
yeah, well, I just wanted to comment as to that. Anybody that leases, in my understanding, leases shellfish planting ground in the Commonwealth of Virginia has the risk of loss or harvest. And the only requirement is to have productivity and prove that over a 10-year period,
10-year period.
the life of the lease. You have to show that there's been productivity or attempt at propagation of shellfish. So there is no stipulation to this. Anybody that leases oyster ground has the inherent risk of loss.
Which is what I was saying. The only permits you would need is if you did something outside of the 12 inches tall cages, floating cages or taller cages. Everything else, he would be statutorily authorized to do. Which I understand is only several activities, but there's no permit condition on them. They don't need a permit for it. That's the issue. So I have a motion, I'm gonna say this to make sure it's correct, because this is how I took it, and I'm pretty sure I'm right on this. You made a motion to approve the 250 acres as submitted,
Yes, sir.
and it was seconded by Commissioner Headley. All right, so we got a motion to approve the 250 acres as submitted, the lease assignment, and properly made by Mr. Preston, Commissioner Preston, properly seconded by Commissioner Headley. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Raise your hands, please. Raise your hands. All those in favor, raise your hands. I have Commissioner Preston, Commissioner Edwards, and Commissioner Headley are ayes. All those opposed, raise your hand. I have Commissioner Hand, Commissioner Kellum, Commissioner Erskine, and Commissioner White. Motion fails 4-3. Back to the drawing board. Mr. Erskine, sorry.
I'd make a motion to to approve the application for planting ground that would reflect an area that is not in conflict with sublines 3 and 4. And I'm not sure if that's, maybe Adam can help out with the actual acreage of it, but whatever would be a compromise and less.
And we're assuming these lines that are on this chart are
Hey,
to accurate specifications,
Yeah, and
because I don't see line
I
lines.
understand that the testimony from the Corps was there's variability, and also staff said there could be variability within where the placement of those sublines are. But it may be an area that's 75 or 100 acres. I'm not sure how we actually determine that, but I will clarify my motion when appropriate.
And just to be clear, that this is a figure taken from the city of Norfolk's written comments that shows an approximate depiction of where these lines may be. So to create a formal motion on the distinct of where these lines creates a very gray area on where these lines are going to be marked. Yes, we can say up to 125 acres or encompassing, and it may be something we can work out after, but to say not in line with subline 3 or subline 4, from my understanding, those are very variable and may not be able to be followed.
Okay, as a follow-up, sir?
Yes, sir.
So, you said previously that within our purview would be to reduce the size of the platform.
Absolutely.
So if we were to do that, how would that be redrawn?
It's up to this commission on how to redraw it. It's up to the commission and what they vote on, as well as the acceptance of the applicant.
Okay, so for an example, as a follow-up, sir, as an example, 75 acres, how would that be depicted in there? We would actually have to set the coordinates of where that would be?
You would have to set the approximate, if you can set the approximate northwest corner, southwest corner, 75 acres in a square, I can come up with the exact coordinates. If you just say 75 acres, I'm going to need a little bit more direction. These are surveyed, these are mapped, these are licensed surveys. So I can do some cleanup on the back end, but I can't tell you which 75 acres that you're thinking.
Okay, so as a follow-up again, this will be my last one. The applicant testified he had surveyed it already.
Correct, we
So is
surveyed
this
at
red?
250 acres as
Right, so
requested.
this shaded red area is that actual survey?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And that actual survey is in your packet, I think, on page 4.
Mr. Headley?
I know Mr. Johnson has spent some money getting this surveyed and everything. And from what I'm hearing in the last 5 or 10 minutes, there's a whole lot of gray area here. Mr. Erskine talked about the public trust doctrine, and I completely understand what he's saying and agree with him on that. And didn't know whether there was any way we could table this to get a whole lot clearer picture. Not deny it, but table it until we could get 75 acres laid out, or till we could get a better understanding of exactly where the pipes are going. I would like to see him get some sort of oyster application. But then it's so much gray area on the other side of it, where pipes are going and where this is going and everything. Like I said, I don't want to see it denied, but I would like to work through this, and I don't think it's going to happen this afternoon.
Tabling is always an option for things like this, at least, that don't necessarily have like a time frame, if I recall correctly.
And that's fine, and it's gonna come before the same commission, the same people gotta make the same decision, and that's great. We can do that, we can table it. I'll do whatever the commission decides, it's your right. Received June 22nd, 2021, 4 years ago. He's waited in line. We're steadily getting more people waiting in line because we can't make a decision. Let's table it. We're gonna hear this and 20 more like it next month. Mr. Hand.
This time I'm going to tell you what I really think. There's tons of oyster ground out there that's already leased and unutilized, some 100% unutilized. I mean, there's thousands of acres. And I don't see why creating more oyster ground at the harm of community projects makes any sense at all. I can't believe this board is considering it myself. I'm at a loss. And it's complicated trying to figure it out, and how complicated it is for Army Corps, who has to go through years of planning and engineering to deal with an extra factor, because there might be some oysters there for the benefit of an individual, where a community and a huge project by the federal government is made much more difficult. For what reason? Does this board absolutely protect every waterman under any circumstances? I'm gonna ask you a question. Can anybody speak to that?
I'd love to answer your question if I could. The waterways, it's hard to govern both ways, but you have to govern both ways. It's a public, or at least a private beach here. I'm not familiar with the area, but that water is there. We have to look at serving both people, the recreational use and the commercial use. So if they get their beach replenished, people go to work too at the same time. I have a hard time, maybe because I'm ignorant of the area, understanding maybe the risk that's at play that put more oysters in our waters here in Virginia. Maybe that's a portion of my ignorance, but not to approve every waterman's request, because that hasn't happened by any means. But this is not owned, the waterway is not solely owned by the people that live along that shore or walk that beach either.
It is, may I speak?
Yeah.
So,
The issue of recreational use of that beach is one small part of this, in my opinion. There's erosion that without these replenishment projects, are ultimately going to affect people's homes and Norfolk public property that serves, hundreds of thousands of people. So we're looking at the interests of one person, again, like I said, versus a whole community. How tough is that? And in this particular case, I'm not so sure it's viable. I mean, I don't blame you for trying to go see if you can get a viable, oyster harvest there. But I'm not so sure it's even gonna happen. So all this may be in naught. And like I said, if it's so hard for us to come up with a plan, think of all the city of Norfolk and Army Corps, and there's probably others involved as well.
I'm from the area, so that Willoughby Spit was created by a hurricane probably, 200 years ago? It wasn't there 200 or 300 years ago.
Early 1700s.
Okay,
All right,
it was
all right,
created by-
it's not a fire meeting, guys. The commission's talking.
It was
We're up here
created
for
by a
commission.
hurricane. And that beach right there is a beach where, if you go down there right now, I guarantee there are people out there with towels and they're swimming out there. If I live at Virginia Beach on the ocean, and if somebody came and was gonna put a 250-acre oyster bed where I swim, I would be jumping up and down. I'd probably sue somebody. I mean, it would be.
Is this not far enough offshore? So maybe
It's not far enough offshore. The water here is not like the ocean. It's very shallow. It's very shallow as it goes in. And that's where people swim. I mean, I'm just telling you. I really think, we got other issues here, and I really think with the way that we should handle this is we should disapprove it and let him apply for another permit that meets with what the Corps wants to do and what the city of Norfolk wants to do, and what you guys want to do that are voting for it and talking about getting him 75 or 100 acres or whatever, and then they can come back in here and bring it back, and then if it's palatable, we'll approve it. That's the way it should be done. We're gonna be here all day.
We might be, because I still don't understand how the oyster ground will cause erosion along that beach. The oyster ground will not inhibit.
It's not. It won't.
So, correct. And I don't know how the oyster ground will inhibit the citizens' beach from being protected either. I don't understand how that, other than maybe somebody stepping on a shell at 11 foot of water at mean low tide. That's the only, help me out, because that's the only thing I see here. That's maybe a possibility, or maybe a loose shell. Maybe, and I tell you what, the answer to Mr. Hand's question, that this, we might be opening the door for, maybe he doesn't make it there because it's not great oyster ground. Maybe the current's too strong, maybe the bottom's too sandy from the beach, or what, it's hard to say. Guess what? Everybody else is watching him, and if it doesn't take, nobody else is gonna try to lease the property. Unless they try to do it for a caged purpose, and that's a possible, right? But we're not discussing that.
I will add real quick, I was trying to jump in, and we're kind of getting this banter back and forth. And I wanted to add to Commissioner Hand's question. You know, are we protecting one waterman? Are we protecting the homeowner's rights? Are we protecting the community? Which one? And it's very simple. You're up here to do all of it. You're protecting every one of them. So I agree with you from the landowner perspective. I agree from you from the city citizens of Norfolk. But where I won't agree with you is we're here for that one waterman too. We're here for all of them. So don't forget that. We're here for everybody. Whether we vote in a way that hurts one person or hurts 20 people, we're here for everybody. That's why everybody gets to talk and gets to say the same thing over and over and over again when we have a Menhaden meeting. Same thing. So we're here for everybody. Any more comments? And only the reason I was telling you that 2021, you guys are not picking up, is we're talking about tabling something that's already been surveyed. And if we're gonna take the ground away from this individual, or if we're gonna give it to him, how many times does it have to come before the commission when we have a long list of people waiting? And so I agree with you, a decision needs to be made. I don't know if I'll like it or not, but we could put this, what's the timeline? Put it on the table for 4 more years?
You will possibly also need another survey.
Yeah, we would definitely need another survey, because if you're gonna reduce the ground, that's an additional cost. We already know that. Because it's not gonna be the same footprint, which would make that ground illegal. If he goes outside of the footprint, it's a felony, so we would have to order it to be resurveyed at an additional cost. There's a whole plethora of issues here. It's not a one size fits all, but my point is we can table it, and I'm fine with that, and I'm getting ready to move on from this, and I'm getting ready to table it for you one way or the other if we don't move along here. But we can't keep bringing things to this commission and you guys not making a decision for 4 years old. When we're starting to get backlogs, I don't even want to ask you how much we're backlogged, because I already know there's a backlog. We got to start making decisions. That's why we were put here. We were put here to make the tough decisions. That being said, last time I say this, matters before the commission, before I table it.
I'll make a motion again, the same motion I made before, to deny it and let him come back with a redone plan.
So I have a motion to deny and for the applicant to come back
Yeah.
forward with a different plan
Yeah.
from Commissioner White. Do I have a second? I have a second from Commissioner Hand. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? All right, show of hands. All those in favor of the motion to deny, raise your hand. Let the record reflect Commissioner White, Commissioner Hand. All those opposed, raise your hand. Let the record reflect Ms. Kellum, Mr. Erskine, Mr. Headley, Ms. Edwards, and Mr. Preston. Motion fails again. I'm not gonna bring that one back up. Guys, we're spinning our tires here. Unless y'all have something intelligible here, I'm gonna move to the next item and I'm gonna table it. Ms. Kellum?
I'm still in agreement with Commissioner Erskine's path forward. If we can just concentrate on that and have a vote.
So, sir, Adam, I'm gonna need help. I'm gonna take one more crack at this, and maybe everybody is unhappy, which is fine. So I'd like to make a motion to accept the application, reduced acreage of 100 acres from the currently surveyed area, the most southeast point to the most northeast point, and move westward at 100 acres.
No, second.
So that's a total of 150 acres for the lease?
No, total 100 acres.
Of inside that block?
Yes, sir.
To that region, okay.
Yes, sir.
So a total of 100 inside that block.
From the whole east line
Yes, sir.
west.
Yes.
So I got a motion from Mr. Erskine to assign 100 acres within that block. The descriptors be moving it westward, is that correct?
Yes.
Moving it, so the most westward 100 acres of that block, within that block, from Commissioner Erskine, seconded by Ms. Kellum. Mr. Kenyon, you're interfering here, but I'll let you speak now. You're not, it's not your position, but go ahead.
I believe, and I'll maybe ask council, we can reduce this within the same footprint. It would require a new survey so that those points are known. It would require the applicant under 615 to bear those survey costs. It would also allow for a 30-day public comment window, which I believe we would probably receive some public comments on this, probably maybe a little bit larger than we already are receiving. And we would be back in front of this commission, having done another survey, charged him another survey for another decision that is almost exactly like the one we are currently making today. However, I'm just wanting to clarify, that is the route that we are exploring with this motion.
Which is why
correct?
we're here right now.
That's a good point.
Because it wouldn't have been surveyed if it wasn't assigned to him, I'm assuming, right? It was assigned to him, and we're here now because they're protesting the assignment. So I have a motion of 100 acres, the westward side.
Yeah, and I would just ask if the applicant agrees with that, and based on the information Chief Kenyon just said,
Yeah.
maybe he's not.
Does the applicant agree with them stipulations and with the risks that Chief Kenyon just brought forth? Do you accept that?
Do I have to pay again? Do you say I have to pay for it again?
You'll have to pay, we're not paying for it.
I understand that.
Yeah, so any cost of the resurvey and all that other stuff will have to be your burden to bear if you accept the changes.
Would that be a guarantee, though?
No?
I'm not here to guarantee you anything.
Guarantee.
Yeah, well, there's no, and I'm not writing you one of them blanket letters notarized either. I'm just telling you,
I
this
understand.
is a risk, you're accepting the risk if we
I
make the
understand.
modification. You're in a situation now, you see where you're at now with the 250, you're gonna be assuming that same risk with the 100 acres. And the answer is, will you assume that risk?
Look, do I have to make up my mind right now?
You got less than 3 seconds before I make it up for you. All right, thank you. I'm not gonna force you to make a decision. Applicant does not accept the risks.
Can I talk with Adam for a second?
Your seconds are running out, buddy. Go ahead. I beat this one to death long enough. I've been clear.
I had assumed if we did it within the same footprint.
No, the corner poles are changed. You can't, it's a felony if you go outside of your corners.
You're gonna have, on the east side, your northeast and southeast will be the same, but then you're gonna have two more in the middle.
All right.
And like he said, he's gonna have to come right back before us again.
And bring it all. He'd have to start, it's really starting from scratch.
Survey GPS, which is within 1 lane, which would no longer be accurate. Yeah, it's a felony if you go outside of your mark. So we would have to make corner points. It's also in code that you had to have it marked before you can mark it properly. All right, time's up. What's your final decision? You phoned a friend, now we gotta have a decision.
I'll go ahead with it. No, if I go ahead with it and change my mind, I can cancel it? How does that work?
I'm not getting the semantics with you.
I mean, I'm just saying,
You're going with it, if you don't pay it, it doesn't get assigned to you to start with.
that's what I'm saying. If I don't pay it, it's go ahead and deny it.
Right.
I'll go ahead and go for it.
You'll take the risk. All right, so we have a motion from Mr. Erskine to get the western portion of this, towards the western side of it, of the 100 acres, properly seconded by Ms. Kellum. Accepted by the applicant. All those in favor